this is All Black Everything, which we do Thursdays 8 p.m. Eastern for all you people on YouTube. I'm going to start introducing these individuals here. So we'll start with GSU Gambit. Gambit, thanks for coming back. And I hear some echo from someone, so if someone could take care of that, I don't know who that is, but I got an echo. But Gambit, thanks for being here.
What's up? What's up? As usual, I'm here on time. So yeah, I am happy to be here. It's been a minute. I think it's been like 2 weeks. I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I am GSU Gambit. Everybody knows me. I'm the most based person on the left. Yeah, that's about it. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much. Next, we have our MVP. His name is Joe Lewis. Joe Lewis, thank you for
coming. Let him Jesus. What's better than Ben? I know Wiggle got. I guess Wiggle got banned, so that fulfilled itself. But yeah, yes. It's doing pretty.
You banned Wiggle.
Fucking based, am I right? Yeah, things are going pretty great. So is this the I'm not gonna say it. I'll say it in the after panel. But I'm glad to be here. Glad to be chilling. Glad to see some new faces and some not so new faces. I don't know. Shout out to vaccines. Shout out to cut sleeve. Hope everyone's doing all right.
Why did you do that? I don't know why that just happened. Okay. All right. I don't know why that happened.
Yo, I was watching y'all. Y'all crazy, man. Crazy people.
I do not know what just happened. No, shout out to Cut Sleep. Thank you, buddy.
He made money, man. He made money. He's good for business.
Well, yeah. All right. Moving on. Mr. Fanatic. Mr. Fanatic. We got like the 3 OGs at the top here, man. Mr. Fanatic, how you doing?
There we go. Should it be good now?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Today is a good day. I'm glad to be back in the panel. Had a good time. I was in Yellowstone last week. So I ended up missing there because it was like a whole week thing. We drove all the way to freaking Wyoming. But I'm like happy to have these kind of conversations. I've been doing a lot of soul searching and dealing with nonsense, but life is good. God's good, and I'm glad to be in here. Thank you guys for having me.
Okay. All right. All right. Someone has an echo. We gotta take care of this right now.
Yep. That's me.
Yeah. Good. Mute yourself or something. I don't know. Yeah. Well, yeah, mute yourself for now, and then we'll figure it out. Okay. So, Lyra, thank you for coming through once again. You are officially the the crowd favorite here, according to my audience, certainly.
Really?
But Lyra, thank you.
Aww.
Thanks for coming back for so many days in a row.
Yeah, I'm always very excited to talk on these panels because I think politics is fun. Even though some people on my channel are just like, oh, politics again. I'm like, damn, skipping politics again. Woo! But always happy to be here, and I'm excited for the topic today, as always.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. Next, we have High Priestess. High Priestess, we've been missing you here. You did have an issue last time. Hopefully, like your house is not disintegrating around you right this moment. High Priestess, how are you doing today?
It's not disintegrating right now, but I mean, if it starts to disintegrate during the panel, I'll let you know, and then I'll run. Gambit, who is that shade thrown at? Talking about you're here on time, like I feel like that. Like I feel personally offended, even though I was here on time too. So I'm
no. I'm always late. I'm always absolutely late. So
I'm sure that's what it is. Okay, I'll
no, that really
I'll
is.
save my offense for later on then. Today's my first day back at work since like 3 weeks. Apparently we started an outbreak at my job. Like 8 teachers got sick and some of the parents got sick. I only had 4 babies today out of 8. And a couple people left. So yeah, there's all kinds of fun things happening in my life. So it's been great.
Okay, all right, I hear you. All right, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for making time and all of that, and thanks for not being infected. I think you're good. All right, like as long as you're safe. All right, great.
Is this safe for us to be in this?
I don't know.
As long as you keep your social distance.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Let me let me help her out with that. Okay. All right. So I think we're good now. I think we're good.
Jesus.
Okay. Next, KTN. KTN, are you good now? Now you're muted. Are you muted in Discord?
No.
Yeah, you're
Right.
can't hear you right now. We'll come back to you in a quick second, right? Next, Katarana. We haven't had you on. It's been like 2 weeks or something since we had you on Black Everything.
I don't know. Now you're making me want to.
Oh no, don't worry. No, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, fine. I won't do it. Hi.
Hey, thanks for coming.
I promised I would do the whole circuit this week, so I'm doing a 4 for 4 this week. Gang. Hello, I'm Katarana again. Still, unfortunately, I do science communications, etc. stuff. Non-for-profit, space industry. I don't have free time. I slept 2 hours today. What to do? Are you ready for crack rambles? Because I'm ready for crack rambles.
What's that background noise? Are you doing something?
My dishwasher. Do you have a problem?
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you want to take this outside?
It sounds like it sounds like a slinky. It sounds like. Am I wrong here? It sounds like okay. Never mind. Whatever. But thank you for being here.
I'm sorry. Do you wash your dishes by hand? Because I'm so sorry for your loss.
Well, I'm sorry. La-dee-da. All right, you and your modern appliances. No, I don't. We got money for that. Next, KTN. We'll try KTN again. You good? If you're talking, we don't hear you.
He's not in the Discord.
Oh, okay, shit.
Oh yeah.
That's a problem now.
Yeah. Can you tell him?
I got him.
There we go.
StreamYard.
Hey, yeah, try it again. Still can't hear you. Yeah.
Maybe KTN could use the StreamYard.
Yeah.
Like you are.
Yeah, maybe.
Discord so iffy.
And the problem is that the reason why I don't let people do that is the volume. The volume gets pretty crazy. You can't really control it so well in StreamYard. But we can try it if it gets them through this one. Maybe we'll figure out the rest later. Okay, so try unmuting yourself in StreamYard and see what happens there, KTN. No. Nope. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Everybody's like waiting patiently.
Okay. All right. So we'll keep working on that. Maybe remute yourself in StreamYard and keep working on that on Discord. And we'll get back to it. Just keep going. All right. We'll come back to you. We have another person who's coming through. They just contacted me, so hopefully they'll be here soon. But we'll just get started. Always when I say that, I don't actually have the topics in front of me. But okay. All right. Topic 1. Bob Johnson sold BET to Viacom in 2001 for $3 billion. Jay-Z sold Tidal to Square, co-founded by Jack Dorsey, earlier this year for $297 million. And Timbaland and Swiss Beats sold their Veru's platform for an undisclosed amount that was likely millions. A lot of people think that if a black-owned company is sold to another company that is not black-owned, the former owners are labeled as sellouts and are told that they have betrayed the community. So, is it fair to call a black business owner a sellout for making a decision to benefit themselves and possibly to benefit others, as many wealthy black business owners give back to their communities? Would it be okay to tell black business owners that they cannot sell to non-minority owned businesses? Should we label these business owners as people who have betrayed their community or race traitors? That's one way to put it. Okay, we'll go to GSU Gambit.
They all race trade. Nah. So my take on this is, so I think that like wealth inequality is something that drives this. So I think that if you are looking to sell a very like powerful or equitable business, there are going to be less and less black people to sell to. So I do think that we should try to keep our goods in our community and try to keep the generational wealth going in our community. But I think the reality of it is it's not always going to be enough buyers that are our skin color. I do think that there should be some sense of community, and I would like give preferential treatment. Like if Joe was like, "Yo, hey Gambit, I got this money, and it's the same amount of money the next person is gonna give you," I think I would probably, and that sounds bad, but I would probably preferentially sell it to Joe for sure. But I don't think these people are race traders because of that. I think it's like it's capitalism, and it's like, hey, right now I think it's the time to get out of this business, so they sell it to whoever the highest bidder is, and yeah, there's hopefully some sort of deals with people in the community, but yeah, I don't think that they're race traders at all. Yeah.
All right. The race trader's comment's going to be super inflammatory. I completely someone else, Samantha, our friend Samantha Banana wrote that one. I completely did not see the race trader when I looked over that question, but we don't have to focus on that part in particular. Let's go with Joe Lewis. You're muted.
I was gonna say KTN's back, by the way. His audio is coming through on my end.
Yeah, my audio's it's weird. My I can't hear Prime from my headphones, but I can hear him from my computer.
Gotcha.
So in order to hear, I can hear Prime separately and then hear the panel separately, which is weird. So
because I'm unmuted in StreamYard and not in Discord. So if you could, I know, maybe route the website, I don't know, through your regular audio.
It's all good.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe Lewis, and mute yourself for now, KTN.
Yeah, so all in all, I think business owners should be able to do whatever they want with their business. I think what gets a little weird is at the sort of local grassroots level. I think it's where things get kind of murky, right? Because if there's a business that's, say, like predominantly Black owned, and then people come to that business from outside of the community to make sure they foster and make that business grow, it would feel kind of like I don't want to say, God fucking damn it, it would look a little like a betrayal if it were to be sold to a non-Black American. What that looks like in practice, there's a little like kind of like cultural sensitivity on. The example that I can think of, like, there's a Caribbean place in my hometown where I go to all the fucking time. It's amazing. But if he were to sell that business to a white business owner, I would have concerns about the integrity of the food and the integrity of the brand that they created. So that's kind of where, for me, I get a little skeptical about, in terms of making sure businesses stay on, like, maintaining the culture, whatever that business is. Now, at the highest level of, like, Jay-Z selling portions of Tidal and stuff, it's just kind of like, there's only so many people that you could possibly sell it to. And then the question is, like, do you think those individuals are going to maintain the culture that you're looking for? So, because maybe that got vetted from these individuals, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I got for now.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, Mr. Fanatic.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a bit of a weird question. There are specific nuances where I think it might actually apply, but in general, I'm going to go ahead and probably disagree with it. Like the idea that these people would be race traders, or even if you get past the word, that it's necessarily a betrayal. There are instances where there would be a betrayal, like kind of like piggybacking off what Joe Lewis was saying. I think the idea is there are certain times where people go out of their way to somewhat disadvantage themselves, specifically for the purpose of supporting Black businesses. Like if I have a choice between buying whatever product for $1 or buying it from a Black-owned business for $1.10, I'm probably going to look at that as like a tithe or like some sort of, something I'm going to eat, and I will pay that additional 10% to support the Black business, being 100% honest. But at the same time, I do understand that we do live in a capitalistic enterprise. If we look at some of the individuals that are being cited in this example, like, for example, Jay-Z, the idea is, like, while I would support him as a Black business owner. The idea is at the end of the day, he is a capitalist and he is trying to make his own money. But seeing where he has spent a lot of his money and how much support he has financially put towards Black efforts, specifically during the long hot summer of 2020, And before then, I like silently bailing out people from prison for being arrested for protesting and things like that. I'm always going to probably recognize that what he's done with his money now has been demonstrably beneficial, him and his wife. So because of that, I find it a lot harder to critique those individuals. So yeah, there can be a betrayal, but I do think that we have to probably think long and hard about if it's directly a betrayal and whether or not we're willing to label it that way.
Thanks so much. Let's go to Lyra. Lyra, you're muted.
Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, along with what like Fanatic just said, with about how there are certainly situations in which maybe they are selling out, but at the same time, I think it's very dangerous, and we should avoid labeling every single Black person who sells their business over to someone who is not Black as a race trader, because we are victims. We're all victims to a capitalist society, and hey, it's nothing wrong with people going out to go and get their hustles. I also think that there are plenty of situations that make the circumstances that adds more nuances to the circumstances of selling over a business. Like sometimes people get scammed. Sometimes they just don't know how to go forward with the business anymore, so they decide to just sell it off and then just take the money and use it for other purposes. There's plenty of nuances to so to always chalk it up to be the person being a sellout. I just don't think it's very fair. It's honestly very also hypocritical, because if we went along with that logic, almost every Black person's family has owned their own farm at some point and has sold it. So it's by that logic, we're all traders. All of our families are race traders. So it's that kind of rhetoric is we should definitely avoid it. But what I also want to say is I don't think there's anything wrong with giving preferential treatment to businesses that are trying to support your skin folk, because it's something else that I want to talk about later as we go into discussion, is that this topic strongly applies to many Black hair product brands. There are many Black brands of hair products that were originally Black owned, but then they were sold to people who are white. And some people have decided to stop using those products. A lot of people get upset because then those products they start making out of different things to make it cheaper. Some people say the products get watery, other things, but not every time. So I can understand why you would turn a discerning eye to businesses that are not Black owned, or businesses that were sold away from Black owned. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a discerning eye at the product or the state of the business moving forward. But it's not fair to just chalk it all up to race traders. Not fair to do that.
Thanks so much.
I'm just trying to get money at the end of the day.
Thanks so much. Fanatic, if you can mute yourself in Discord, I think we're getting echo from you. All right, next, we will go to High Priestess.
I think that in the very loose, contemporary term, because people like to use whatever word, whatever, I think they would be not race traders, because obviously that's an insane thing to say, but I'm sorry. But they're kind of sellouts, right? Because I would say that these businesses are advertised pretty aggressively at their start as Black-owned businesses. Move over here because a Black person owns it. Isn't that great? You should come put all your music on Tidal. Isn't that what it was for? I don't really know what these businesses are about necessarily, but I do know that Black media is a really I don't want to say marginal, but it's a fraction of the form of Black empowerment that we have. And because of the flaws of appropriation and all this stealing, I just feel I don't know, these particular businesses, I feel I'm a little bit apathetic about. But overall, if you are advertising your business as a Black-owned business and then you just quietly, for an undisclosed amount, sold your business over to some big name, you kind of are a corporate sellout. And I guess make your bread, fam. And maybe you're gonna help more people. I think that Fanatic said that Jay-Z did a bunch of fantastic stuff. But I don't know, part of me feels there's this bird in the hand versus the two in the bush kind of thing, where it's you kind of are helping Black people right now as you claim to be. So hopefully you sell this business and do more. I don't really know. But I do know that I've got some more to say on this later on.
Oh, I'm excited. Katrana.
Let me know if my background noise is too intense, but I'm sorry. Do Does someone out here have what is it, $3 billion to give Bob Johnson? Does another Black person have that amount of money burning a hole in their back pocket? Then like, okay, like who else was gonna pay for it? Like, I'm sorry, how many Black billionaires are there? What, all 4 of them are gonna fight to the death? Okay, like who says Oprah wants another network? Like it's so dumb. And I understand, like, sure, if we did like have like such a disproportional amount of black billionaires and millionaires to go ahead and like buy and fight over this property, and then there's actually like some type of competition, and then just Black people are like, I don't want to support like my fellow brother in, but like unless you have $3 billion, Prime, you're doing well. You got $3 billion, you can buy it back. Like otherwise, like no, like it's not race tradering. Like it's honestly like at some point you don't want anything to do with it anymore. Like if I ended up having like a company and then like I'm burnt out, or I made my money, or I just don't want anything to do with this anymore, or maybe I did something stupid and I have to sell my shares. Like I should be able to have the opportunity to leave, exit an industry when I want to, and there's not a plethora of Black people with $2 billion saying, "Come take it, please. I don't want it anymore." Then like otherwise, like it's not race tradery. Like people have the right to go ahead and like deuce the fuck out of an industry when they want to, and they shouldn't need to sit there and wait until the next Black person comes. Because I mean, have fun. It'll be 20 years. Good luck.
So my PayPal button hasn't gone off in quite a while, so I don't know what you're talking about doing well here. I'm out here struggling. All right, waiting for that PayPal notification. Ain't happened so far, so I don't have to tell you. But I don't know, someone could change that. I can see. We'll go to a big.
We'll call Mr. Beast.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Mr. Beast don't care about Black people.
Yeah. I would have no idea. I would have no idea. We have Big Do, who has just joined us. Thank you for stopping by. We are talking on the first topic in terms of like, is it wrong for Black-owned businesses to sell to sell the owners to sell to non-Black-owned companies? What do you think?
I mean, like, I think when I believe it was Katarna. I'm sorry. Like, there's a weird noise.
No one knows.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Most of her sentiments I agree with, but I think what's more important is to like realize the fact that like, if a business is Black owned, all right, and say it sells, all right, typically when a company sells, it doesn't just end at that point. Either it becomes like some sort of division of another company in some way, all right, or subsidiary, or it continues on, all right, just being owned by like, I don't know, some billionaire or something like that, or some sort of venture capitalist. It doesn't matter. Regardless, like there's increased capital that they have access to now expand this business, presumably so they can employ more individuals who are, I don't know, into whatever the things that specific Black businesses do, like BET. I'm sure it's like majority, or at least a fair portion of its employment is Black people in the first place. So if it expands, a large portion of the jobs being granted to individuals at that firm are just going to be Black people, because I don't think too many white people are like lining up to work at BET. I don't know, but like generally speaking, it would seem as if like the most preferential outcome would be to have the most amount of capital being granted to Black businesses, and there just isn't that many like Black individuals to sell to, unfortunately, or get capital from.
Okay, thank you. KTN, how's it going? Didn't make it. Okay, Tim. Well, you're still muted on Discord, so try unmuting there. Try unmuting on Discord. Can
you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Great. Yeah. So basically, the way I look at it is a lot of other companies that weren't Black owned, a lot of times they just do stewardship. So when somebody leaves, they usually pass it on to somebody in it. That could be a possibility for Black owned businesses, to pass it on to somebody competent, be family. Companies like Ford, he passed it on to his kids again and again and again. Jeff Bezos, he's passing on to someone who he's not related to. If you do have an organization that's Black owned, and if your management has enough Black owned high or C-suite people, you could just pass it on to them, or you could just find somebody who is a CEO and just leave it to them in stewardship. You don't have to sell it. But, like Katarina said, if you want the bag, you want the bag. Maybe the delayed gratification, but I wouldn't necessarily call them sellouts. If we want businesses like that to stay Black forever, it's sort of unrealistic. I think the better approach is to have more Black businesses that are more powerful pop up and support them.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Do me a favor and like put on like push to talk.
Push to talk.
You know how to do that?
Yeah. See, I've been going through the settings.
Okay, cool. So just mute yourself until you're ready to talk. All right. Okay. So open to the panel.
So a reoccurring theme is that how many Black people are out there to actually buy these like massive businesses? Because I was thinking about this in terms of the big businesses, not the small businesses, because I guess I think about small businesses a little bit differently. But when it comes to the really big ones, I looked up to see like how many Black people were in the top 1%, and there's only 1.4% of Black people in the top 1%. So that's 1% of 1% according to the 2010 census. So obviously, not a lot. You're absolutely accurate. There aren't a lot of like super massive,
Not many options.
there's not a lot of options for you to sell off your massive business to another Black or minority.
Sure, but then the question comes like we have many examples of not even a question, it's just we have many examples of individuals not even caring about the potential losses that might come from selling that business. Like as an example that comes to mind for me is that like there's a reason why Saad Khaled is an executive producer on DJ Khaled's albums, despite the fact that this is a literal child. There is power in passing things on to those of your own. I think it's an important thing that I think we should try to do for the sake of our children. Now, when it comes to like the higher levels that say like the Jay-Z's in the world of navigating, sure, there aren't going to be the kind of people where you can get like the maximum intake of whatever you're making. But yeah, I mean, that's something I think about for sure.
I mean, I guess it's much easier to like point at a billionaire and say, "Oh, you're a sellout. You're doing this because you're already rich and you just don't care." So I get why people would like automatically jump to the conclusion that they're selling out or they're not supporting us. But like I think it's like very unfair to like attach that rhetoric to every single Black business owner who decides to sell their business to someone who is not Black, because it's like as I mentioned before, there's so many nuances that can go into it. Like between people getting scammed, they don't want to. Like as Katarana brought up, there's not that many options of people to sell it to. So it's not very fair, especially not in a capitalist system, to get mad at someone for being a capitalist. I mean, at the same time, it's still, there is something that is very powerful about, passing it off to your children. Because like if you have a business that was built off of being Black, being proud of being Black, and like, this is why I mentioned Black hair products before, because it's like, what do Black hair products always say? Oh, for Black people, by Black people. But then when that gets sold off to like a white owner, people are like worried that like, oh, well, the sentiment's not there anymore, So it's like I understand why you could be why people can be upset about that, but at the same time, we shouldn't take that aggression and point it towards the business owner. We should take that aggression and just internalize it and instead manifest it into turning a discerning eye into how the business plans to move forward. Because that's what's truly important, how the business moves forward. Because like, hey, even if the CEO isn't Black anymore, if that CEO is putting money into Black communities, then like, what are you really upset about, So like, it's more important to like channel that energy into making sure the business is helping the community as a whole, no matter who owns it.
Big deal.
You're muted.
Yeah, so I feel as if like a really important thing is just the fact that like on paper the whole concept of like being a Black-owned business I think sounds really good. All right, but like it doesn't seem as if it's like necessarily any less exploitative. Like the futures of like say a hair products brand, for specifically Black people. If they know a majority of their customer base is going to be Black people, they're going to look to serve that community first and foremost, irrespective of whether or not it's Black owned. We can look at like companies like Tidal, all right, for example, as like a very major Black owned business, as was actually provided by Jay-Z selling it. I actually was a Tidal subscriber. I know a tad bit about like how the streaming and music industry works, not that much, but like a tad bit. And it doesn't seem as if they're like any more or less significantly exploitative, excluding for individuals who specifically sign deals with Tidal and like the Rihannas who got on to promote the brand and the whole shebang of that. It seems as if everybody else got this exact same shot, irrespective of whether or not they're Black, based on race or anything like that. So I just more so focus on like what is the total amount of investment that we could give to this particular community that we understand has negative outcomes for whatever reason, all right, and focus on that rather than like whether or not the owner of the company is Black or the majority of the shareholders are Black.
Kathrana, then Fanatic.
Yeah. So just because a brand's image is kind of centered around helping the Black community or just serving the Black community, doesn't necessarily mean that when you go ahead and sell that, they'll continue to do things positively. I didn't realize when BET was sold, but I think you guys all know that BET in the 2000s wasn't very fun. Yeah. Yes, make us look like we don't know how to do things. I love it. Keep doing it. So yeah, I wouldn't say like necessarily that just because it's a Black owned business and that it's like by Black people for Black people, when it's sold to someone that's not a person of color, that they're going to continue to keep like, the good work. Because I think BET actually is fucking did shit for I think it ruined my childhood and my teenagehood, and why everybody comes up but they don't know my name. It might be Shanae, and I hate.
You were cutting in and out. Your internet's kind of wonky, Katarana, just so you know. Been cutting in and out. But we got most of that. Thank you. Okay. Let's go to Fanatic and then Gambit.
Yeah. So there's a problem. Like, okay. There's a specific thing where it matters a lot to me, and I think in specific cases like Black entertainment television, the fact that this thing was so heavily, insanely marketed towards Black people, and it did become like a kind of a source where Black people expected to go to find like Black entertainment, and then to give that thing with the title Black entertainment television over to a non-Black person, I think that is some. And while I get like, not everybody's gonna be Oprah able to like own their own network. I mean, one of the other niggas who's gonna do it was Cosby. But like in reality, I get that that's gonna be a really difficult thing to be able to do. But there is a measurable harm that we can look at from BET specifically. It became actual demon scum. It was ridiculous. It was worse than Kamala Harris, to be honest. So the idea is, I do think when you have specifically, I'm just throwing out loaded stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I feel but I do feel like ultimately, yeah, when you do have things that are aimed specifically at Black people, or that Black consumers are going to be the large majority, I do think you do have some sort of like considerations to make about whether or not that's going to affect specifically Black people. When like things like Tidal, they were competing with Spotify. They're not winning that battle. I'm sorry. Most people can't even interpret high fidelity streaming. Like there's like blind tests to try to see if you can do it. Most people cannot tell the difference. So you're not going to really, you're not really gaining an advantage there. Spotify was already like the super duper like winner at this point. And it was like Jay-Z's holding on to this thing, trying to do something that I think makes sense. The way artists are getting screwed out of streaming is gross. But in reality, I'm not about to put my money behind Tidal when Spotify is like literally a better platform. And it was, to be 100% honest with you. So that's why I just stayed with Spotify. And most of Americans did. Most of the world did. So like him selling that wasn't like a Black owned business aimed at specifically Black people. Now I do know that plenty of Black people probably supported it because of Jay-Z and because it was Black owned. But in reality, the average consumer was not Black people. Like, and originally he bought it from like some Eastern a Western European country, I believe it was. And then like later on, like he kind of became the owner, but still the vast majority of the employees were white. I saw this one picture where it was like, hey, this is Tidal, a Black owned company. And it was like, there was Jay-Z, like one other Black dude and a sea of white. And it was like, it's just really Black owned. Now, when we're talking about Black infrastructure, dealing with Black businesses that are like serving Black purposes in Black communities, at that point, you do want to have that kind of insight. The way Koreans have done Black people when it comes to the hair industry is absolutely disgusting. They've completely ignored Black interests and have completely usurped that industry, and it's absolutely gross. Considering that we're the absolute vast majority of all purchases, we're out purchasing everyone else 10-1. 10-1, yet we're less than 10% of all ownership when it comes to these products. We're less than 10% when it comes to distribution. Like, those things do matter. And Black people learn that lesson. I was watching a documentary on that like this week. Black people are learning that lesson, but now it's at a point where we almost can't even get a foot back in the door because Koreans are being gross.
Yeah, and even to reinforce Vinak's point a little bit, like, one of my frustrations is always that, like, using Tidal as an example, right, is that Tidal wasn't, in my eyes, a Black-owned business from the get. It was just an initiative of musicians trying to solve a problem, which was the fact that streaming services were exploiting their workers, essentially the musicians, for just like ad revenue and other things. Oversimplified. And then, like, despite the fact that Tidal was still arguably the best streaming service as a musician to push your releases on, they still gave you pennies to the dollar. And this is despite the fact where we're the highest earner, and it's like, okay, cool. So even though you're the highest owner, one of the biggest questions, and Rick Beato brought this up very early on as a critique of Tidal, of like, how sustainable is that long term? Like, can you really pay the musicians the way that you want in an infrastructure that's like significantly larger than the size of Spotify? And the answer predominantly was nah, like, it needs to stay small in order we can like spread it out to dollars. And because at the end of the day, like, people, like, business owners want to make money off their thing. And obviously Jay-Z saw an opportunity to like basically leave a sinking ship, because it is a sinking ship, and he capitalized on another company that I would argue is another sinking ship. So it's like, okay, I'm going to pass off the sinking ship to another sinking ship, so at least I cash out a little bit. Now, just for sake of transparency, right, like, Jay-Z is still a member of an executive board, and he's also the people who are stockholders, like J. Cole all the way to Deadmau5. They still have their own stock. It's just that Jay-Z was the majority stock owner, and now it's just like all these other people still have the stock, but now the majority stock is within Square.
I'm not sure if you had your hand up, High Priestess, before, but if not, then I'll just go to Katarana. Katarana?
I did not. I did not have my hand up.
Yeah. Katarana, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. So the whole thing where we were talking about Tidal having majority white people, and like just kind of this whole entire conversation, isn't that just kind of like an issue with the amount of people within the Black community not going into STEM? Because like, what do you need to go ahead and manage like a streaming platform? You need a lot of people to do technical work, to do app development, back end, front end, etc. Like, there's no Black people in these fields, like, and like,
wait, what?
And it's not literally like I'm literally in the field. I'm not saying that there's not a single Black person in the
Yeah,
field.
but I think you're mixing up the real quick. I don't mean to cut you off there, but I think you're mixing up the idea of like the shareholders that exist who have majority shareholders and the actual people working on the ground. But I guess you're arguing that
I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about the people that are actually working the app. The people that are managing, the app. People that would be basically on Jay-Z's team when he was running Tidal. So like, it all goes into this, like, okay, there's no Black people to go ahead and buy the app when I'm selling, because there's no Black people that have the kind of money. There's not enough Black people on the team of the company, but also how many Black people do you see in a software engineering program? So like, it all just kind of like, it all rolls into this. And especially when you're going ahead and trying to compete with like, Spotify, you want the best and the best. And if there's only, 1% of your graduating class per year is able to do app development that's Black, and you want the best of the best, then it's the 1% of 1% and 1%. And it's like, it's just like, Black people just don't go into these fields that will eventually make them enough money to buy an app or be on the like leading team of like the newest music app. It's just, it's just generally a problem. There's like,
but you do
money doesn't come out of the sky. You have to actually go into a field that will make you the money. And
right. So then why didn't Jay-Z just redistribute his shares to the other individuals who were also shareholders?
Wait, give away his shares?
He could have easily just redistributed his shares.
So
Why would he do
given him-
that?
So yeah, so Jay-Z, he hasn't called me this week, so maybe next time when he does, I'll ask.
Right, but I'm asking
but I don't know
you.
what
I'm
Jay-Z
asking I'm asking just your
thinks.
personal opinion. I'm not trying to make it seem like you're the authority of understanding it. I'm saying, like, if you were in Jay-Z's position, would you redistribute your shares to other individuals so that they can run the company as they see fit?
His goal was to make money, though, right? His goal wasn't to be charitable.
Sure, but I'm saying that, like, he could have easily redistributed his shares, and I would argue probably get better ends of the deal, right? Because individuals underneath him, like anywhere from like Chris Martin, Daft Punk, to Damian Marley, J. Cole, Rihanna.
So you
These are
think
all
those-
individuals that have a lot of
But
capital.
like you're presuming those individuals want to make that investment.
Yeah, you're assuming that.
Right.
Also,
No, but I'm
like,
saying that, like,
it's kind of assuming that everybody just has like $1 million that they're like,
holy shit, hypotheticals are hard. So okay, so let's
no, but
walk
like
through this a
Jay-Z
little bit. Let's
is
walk through
already
this a little bit.
extremely wealthy.
Right, so
Out of all the people on title, he's already the
Okay,
richest.
sorry, one time.
Whoa, hang on.
time.
So this idea that he was the wealthiest is kind of misleading, because especially considering that Beyonce was also a shareholder. Rihanna is a shareholder. These are individuals that I would argue have way more political capital than Jay-Z ever would. So like one of the things that I think could have been something that is advantageous. Hear me out. This is a long play. Something that they could have done.
I almost agree with you.
Yeah, like something that he could have done, which is one part of this, right? Is that he could have easily just redistributed their shares, and then those shareholders could have probably got a better deal for something that's better than Square. Because if anything, that is kind of a fuck you. And that,
So
like,
I
look,
see
I'm
what
going
you're-
to, yeah.
I see what you're saying a little bit. You're saying that, hey, he could have sold portions of his shares to all of his friends, and then they would have had more of the company, right? The problem is maybe if Jay-Z is getting out, those people don't want to get more in, right? So imagine if me and you have a company, like if I'm getting out, maybe you don't want to buy my shares because you're like, he's getting out. Maybe I need to try to get out too, right? Blah, blah, blah. So I understand your hypothetical. But I would assume that those conversations were had. I don't.
Yeah. Like there's one. That's just like one part of it, right? Because on one hand, like there's no way. Well, you go for it, Catherine. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, like, maybe it doesn't necessarily feel like having like several conversations. Like, you want a piece. Like, why would I go and have a conversation with like,
sure,
gather up like the 40 other people that might want to go ahead and do it when I can have one.
Right, and I guess like I have a bit more context. Like again, just to be clear, I have a bit more context and understanding like the interplay of this, right? Because one of the things that all these individuals, the reason why they ended up being shareholders and why they even started titles, because they were all friends with each other. So this was like a friend endeavor, everybody working together. And even when like people look at the names of the shareholders, it's like this is a random group of people. But then in reality, it's like no, like these are all people that Jay-Z argued and Beyonce argued. These are people that we trust in the industry to have the best interest of this. And the one thing that confuses me is that like, okay, if you're Jay-Z and you're married to Beyonce and then you sell your majority shares and she's still a shareholder, it's a little interesting to me where like they could have easily maybe if Jay-Z, and again, like everybody can live their best life, right? But at the same time, like me from a business perspective, I'm thinking like, why Square? Two, why is your wife still a shareholder if you're backing out? And then three, like, why are you like? It's really confusing to me in like the macro. But
you said it was a falling knife, right? So it's likely that people are gonna start getting out, in what order that happens.
Okay,
doesn't really matter,
so,
right?
I want two things. First, I want GSU Gambit. I kind of wanted you to respond to Katarana and her claims about software engineering, and then two, I want to go to KTN after that.
Yeah, so Katarana is absolutely correct, which is why if you're black and you're listening to me right now, you should be going to school for STEM. There is not enough black people inside of STEM. I've been a software engineer professionally since 2012. I've interviewed 2 black people and I've worked for 2 very gigantic organizations. So the idea that we need more black people in STEM is like absolutely spot on. But the other thing I wanted to address, it seems a little bit weird to me that, like, I can't remember who said what, but there was like ideas that because Jay-Z owned Tidal, that they should be giving like super preferential contracts to black people. And I agree that we should be not trying to give out like 360 deals and stuff like that. but there is still a capitalist competitive landscape, and they have to be able to make money across time. And like what Joe was saying, like maybe trying to be like as altruistic as possible with their contracts would lead to them going out of business, right? So I think that there's two sides to that coin. Like I do agree that if I own a Black-owned business, I should be trying to help Black people for sure. But that doesn't mean that I can help them to the detriment of the business, and the business goes under.
Yeah, and then like another side thought too is like as much as like I'm not trying to defend the actions of people who work at BET, but then like is the problem that we have that Black Americans have with BET, or is the problem really just the actual enemy here, in my opinion, which is Viacom? Like Viacom has had a history of like across all of the sub channels that they own having poor representation across not only just racial lines but gender lines, like all the way down to the lowest end of like Nickelodeon, for instance. This was a problem that many people argued that like Kel Mitchell argued that like, look, Viacom doesn't care about Black people and they don't care about our voices and sketches, and this is despite the fact that, like, as an example, right, for Kenan and Kel was one of the best television programs at the time for Nickelodeon, and despite this, and despite being like, hey, we want to continue this, Viacom's like, we can't really have the episode on the social issues that you want because that might be too risque. Obviously, it's the 90s, but even then, it's like other channels and companies were doing this thing that were a bit more better for Black media at large. But then you have Viacom that owns BET. BET drives like drives not only sales but ad revenue, all this stuff because of Viacom. Like I think the enemy when it comes to the rise and fall of BET is Viacom more than it's BET. Obviously BET is still responsible, but
KTN.
You're muted. Or is it just me?
Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah,
No, I can't hear him.
Okay.
You still muted in Discord?
No, he's unmuted.
No, he's unmuted in Discord.
Push to talk him.
Yeah, are you doing push to talk now?
There. Yeah, it might just be a push to talk issue. What I've been doing is just turning off my mic on and off, because if your computer is not good enough, it might not realize that you're doing the key binding stuff.
Yeah, still cannot hear. Well, all right. Well, we're working on that. We'll come back to you. Oh, go ahead, High Priestess, and then Lyra and Big Do.
I don't think I'm like a class reductionist or whatever, but I kind of think I might be a little bit sometimes, and I think that power kind of corrupts people really bad. And I don't know. I see capitalists more willing to like destroy resources than to just like give it out, literally. So when you ask like, well, why didn't Jay-Z just give it up? Well, why the fuck would any of these fucking capitalist pigs do that shit? Because they want more money. That's why he didn't do that shit. He wanted to get as much as he could from this business. That was the whole point of starting it to begin with, and that was the end game. When it comes to like helping people and sustainable business models, a lot of times these things don't go hand in hand, and so they'll just go for a sustainable business model. And I don't know. I feel really suspicious when it comes to talking about these big businesses and whether or not they were going to help Black people in the hands of Black people or in the hands of not Black people. It's sort of like I don't know. I just feel like capitalists are going to do what capitalists fucking do and take more for themselves.
Okay. Go Lyra, then Big Dude, then Katrana.
I can let Katarana reply to this because what I was going to talk about is jumping subjects a little bit. So.
Okay, well then I'll go to Big Dude, then Katrana.
I mean, like we really harped on the example of Tidal, but like Tidal's probably the closest thing to like being like an example of what like I think a modern Black or Black-owned business would look like. And the main issue is not necessarily that like Jay-Z could do X or Jay-Z could do Y. It seems as if Jay-Z made this particular type of decision, and like it probably is because of the fact that that's what could maximize the amount of money he could get. Like going around to each individual, even if they wanted to, probably wouldn't yield you as much capital as like Square could offer you. So I'm just wondering what exactly would be like the model for a company like Tidal that you would want, because like in any field, it doesn't need to be STEM. In any field, there is a lack of Black people attending university, just full stop. So, or college. There's just a lack of Black people in any sort of like postgraduate degree, really. So I just question for as to like what would your ideal black business of this size look like, and what would say if it has to sell, what would it look like?
Okay. Now let's go Katarana and then back to library.
I mean, does somebody want to give a direct response to that? Because what I'm going to say is not going to be a direct response to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the jazz community does incredible strides into this very thing. That there's a clear understanding that jazz music is black music, period. And while, yes, there are plenty of very incredibly talented non-black musicians that are in the sphere of jazz, a lot of the very record labels now within places like Blue Note, as an example, are majority black owned and run one with essentially black owned businesses. However, something that gets kind of I don't know, misrepresented, but this idea that just because it's something is black owned doesn't mean that it's black exclusive, right? So just because something is black owned doesn't mean that it's exclusively catering to just black people. Like there's a lot of jazz record labels where artists basically they seize the means of their own label so that they can redistribute and give people like in areas that might not exist. Look no further than like Miss Christian McBride and Jazz House Kids, for instance.
Fanatic, if you're going to respond to that.
Yeah. Oh, so I think like what exactly a black-owned business looks like. I mean, that's I guess that I don't know what that question exactly means. Like the owner, the CEO of a business is a black business, and in the case of Tidal, it is a black-owned business. Now, the vast majority of the employees aren't black, and we can start getting into more nuance for what qualifies. But at the end of the day, whoever owns the most shares, or whoever is not the CEO, but whoever owns the most shares of a business is the owner. If it's a publicly traded company. And in that case with Tidal, it was a black-owned business. So that means if that business succeeded, the biggest winner at the end of the day was going to be Jay-Z, who is a black person. And his wife was also had a significant amount of shares, as did Kanye West and Rihanna, and so on and so forth. I just think the whole business model of saying, "Hey, man, artists aren't getting paid enough," and then putting the face of the company as Jay-Z and Beyonce and Rihanna and Taylor Swift and all these other billionaires, Taylor Swift's not a billionaire. But all these billionaires and highly wealthy people, it's like, I don't know, you're not really pulling on my heartstrings, and I'm a freaking artist. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about, again, like we really should be making a distinction between like Tidal and like other businesses whose entire effort is to serve black communities. Yes, there was a bigger problem with Viacom as a whole. I totally agree with that. But the problem is when BET is a black-owned business on Viacom, then we're going to look as black people. We're going to look at BET and expect them to do something different. Like we're going to expect evil people to do what evil people do, and we're going to expect non-black people not to be working in the interest of black people. But we do have I think we have the authority and we have a right to look at specifically black-owned businesses and say, hey, you should be doing better. And I think that's what we were doing when it came to the BET situation, and it just got wholly disrupted. We as a people should start looking at these business practices and start saying when these things are destructive, we're not having it. I think that's fair.
Yeah, but you do agree, Fanatic, that dragging Stacey Dash for 2.5 weeks was the correct play for BET to do, right?
Yes.
I'm glad you agree there.
Like I'm what? Because I grew up in Canada. I know nothing about BET. Like obviously there are shows that I've watched, but like this entire like the like impassioned thing over like BET, like where does it come from? Like what was BET like?
Can I interject really quick and just say that there's a literal Boondocks episode where Regina King just like paints the people who like the writers and directors and all that stuff, painted them as just like totally evil, they hate black people, just like totally insane. So just as like a just as like an anecdotal hyperbole of what BET was like for some people.
Yeah, just go Google BET Uncut.
Yeah. Well, BET basically was it labeled itself as like the central syndicate in terms of black media. Now, do they have like some heavy hitters in certain aspects? Absolutely. Like one example that's modern that I can think of for BET, it's like, okay, this is a smart thing if you're trying to switch your narrative about like being anti-black. It's something like Blackish, despite there even being problems with there in the writer's room. But they were essentially the only visible, oversimplifying this, but one of the the overtly black expression that existed in the 90s and early 2000s. Now, what I mean by that is that that's what most people, if they thought of like black artists, they would think like, oh, this is somebody that I would see on BET or something like that. That's the best oversimplification I can in the interest of time.
So we'll go to Katrana and then Lyra and then KTN. But I also want to interject, the idea of like the partnership of ownership, right? So like part of it is that like, I think someone brought up before is that, we kind of assuming that once it's like quote unquote black owned, that this will somehow bring some sort of advantage to the black community. But one, like, ownership is a funny thing in business, right? And so even for instance, like, okay, some people are arguing whether Tidal was a majority owned by Jay-Z. So I have no idea. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But even if it was, that doesn't mean that him being the majority owner means he's making the decisions, right? Like within how the company is run, that says, like, well, that means anything for its black workers, if there are any black workers, right? And like ownership is kind of diffuse in that manner, right? Like you have the most amount of stock, but are you actually doing anything day to day? Are you making those decisions that affect people on the ground, or investments that might help the community? Is any of that happening, right? And you could have a situation where you don't have majority ownership, but like another company, but they're doing a better job at these things, right? Just because like that ownership by a black person doesn't mean anything, especially by a capitalist black person, right? Like, because capitalists do what capitalists do, and it don't matter what the skin color is.
And even
you heard me, Gambit. You fucking heard me.
I mean, like even the individuals within Tidal, right? This is like why I had like reservations from the jump, because when you looked at the shareholders from Tidal, it was basically like, if the Illuminati exists, it exists somewhere within the individuals of Tidal, because that was basically the amalgamation of the most hyper capitalist musicians from every avenue, right? Like, just so we're clear, right? Like, Calvin Harris was a shareholder of Tidal, and this is an individual who is one of the highest earners in the DJ industry, despite the fact that he is incredibly hyper selective about where he performs. He only performs in Vegas. So not only is he a premier DJ in the Vegas sphere, he's a premier DJ in the mainstream sphere, which makes like, okay, why the fuck is this hyper capitalist cuck right next to Joel Zimmerman, who, as Deadmau5, is like on the opposite end of that spectrum, where he's like, fuck this shit. Like, I hate everything about this industry as it stands for. I'm just gonna isolate myself in my rich ass studio citadel. But it was a really weird amalgamation of just like different artists. But I think to Prime's point, which I agree with you, is that like, I don't know, like capitalists are gonna do capitalist things, and even like in the face of like this thing, it's like
yeah,
I completely disagree.
And we'll get back to you. Hold on, we gotta go to Katarina, Lyra, and then KTN. But hold on to that point, Gambit. Okay, don't forget it. Katarina,
notepad,
please.
Yeah. So I was wondering, unless it's a company that's directly doing things for Black people, such as like being a Black media company or being like a Black hair product company, why would there be an expectation that it's like good to sell to like another Black person? Because like, unless it is something for Black people, I don't see how the voice of a Black person would necessarily be beneficial or not beneficial or kind of beneficial for the company. For example, like, if I have a family deli and it's kosher products, it makes sense. I should go ahead, and if I don't want to deal with this deli anymore, I should sell it to like another Jewish person. But hey, if I am literally just making fucking tops, why should I sell it to whoever? Like, whoever can do it. I understand there's this like whole idea of like, I don't know, keeping things like, I guess, within the community, but it sounds a little bit tribalist to me, especially like if it truly doesn't change the essence of your product. Like, who cares? Just whoever can buy it can. And clearly, if you have a company, you're
Are you talking about the culture of the brand or the actual physical product?
Why wouldn't we be tribalist? Like, tribalism is absolutely important. That's how we like, Hell, all of politics is a game of tribalism. Coalition building is a form of expanding the tribe, right? Like, as Black people, recognizing how much anti-Blackness is in literally every culture, we have to recognize that we need tribalism. The way Koreans took over that industry, they literally got support from their government. When you start looking at the way Jewish dollars are spent and the way they've come into power, it's because Jewish people make sure that their dollar circulates within their community X amount of time before it ever leaves it, right? Same thing happens in Hispanic culture, same thing happens in Asian cultures. White people have always looked out for the interests of white people. That's why they're so freaking reticent and talking about like slowly, marginally moving forward whenever it comes to whatever, to civil rights and things like that. When it comes to the LGBTQ community, they absolutely needed tribalism and coalition building in order to move forward. The idea that, like, yes, it's tribalist. It is absolutely tribalist, but that's probably what's been missing from Black community from the beginning. We've had Jim Crow laws and all of these things and colorisms that have been literally injected into our community, specifically to pit us against one another, because we obviously know a house divided against itself cannot stand. So the idea that we would finally recognize, wait, we start looking out for our best interest the way almost every other culture does, it sounds like that'd be a step in the right direction. One of the first things they did when they brought us over this country was specifically to restrict our ability to speak our language, because that automatically creates tribalism, where we start having this kindredness and endearment to one another. And that's part of the reason why they were able to maintain some of their structures of power, because if we could communicate, we would have been just like Haiti and overthrew our masters, right? So the idea, like, tribalism is absolutely a beneficial thing. I don't know why it's almost sounding like it's demonized here.
Can we?
Well, I
Can
think
we
so.
hold on, wait. Hold on, wait.
Can I finish though? Because I
Sure.
got cut off in the middle.
Can we sing a Black Negro spiritual real quick though? After that,
Okay, all right.
Jesus.
Yeah. So like the thing I'm kind of thinking of is, most likely if you're getting to the point where your company is being priced at a point in which Black people are not really able to afford it, I can't think of how much you could have been really helping the community all that much along the way. Like, you must be quite capitalistic, and like if other Black people can't afford to price you out, so clearly like you're not doing anything for the Black community anyways. Might as well just sell it to anyone, because you're not really that much of a Black philanthropist, or a Black, like you're not really helping Black people all that much on your day-to-day, so might as well just continue doing what you're doing. You weren't already really fighting the good fight with us if you're able to sell things at $60 million, because no Black person that's really doing anything great for the community has $60 million to sell. You must be doing something kind of strange. Why is your social responsibility, why do you have this much profits? Like, you shouldn't be having so much that like you're able to go ahead and sell it at that point. Like, who cares? Like, to me, it doesn't make any difference between if Jay-Z theoretically were to sell it to a Black person or a white person or someone on the street corner, because clearly like Jay-Z, his day-to-day operations isn't let me help my.
Thank you.
Well, one problem
So,
that
sorry, we gotta get some
sure.
other people, and and Gambit, don't worry, we're gonna get to you, but we gotta go to Lyra first, and then KTN, and then we'll go to Gambit and do if we have time.
So with answering that, I know it may seem like, especially when we're talking about products that like you mentioned, like I think I might have heard you wrong, but you said like if I have a deli company, why does it matter what race is the person I sell it to? And I do think that's very important.
No, I said
because,
that
like,
if it is a kosher deli, it would make sense for me to care about me selling it to another Jewish person. But if I'm just selling like Barbies, then who cares?
Why though?
Well, I think
that important?
I think it matters no matter what the product is, because like Black people have been like historically disenfranchised in this country, and like a lot of times we have also been profited off of. So no matter what the product is, I can certainly see why many people would be concerned about keeping that wealth within the Black community, because like we've been profited off of, disenfranchised. So like why not keep like selling it to people who are of your color? And another thing I want to mention is that earlier you complained about the lack of diversity. Well, we can't complain about the lack of diversity and then also use that as an excuse to not upkeep that diversity. You know what I mean? So like you do raise up several points, But at the same time, I don't think we shouldn't keep going with the excuse that like, well, aren't that many Black millionaires to sell it to. Even though that is definitely a very strong point and a very fair point, we should be careful about using that as an excuse because, what's the bank? Was it Wells Fargo or H&R? Well, we don't have that many Black people applying to our company. That excuse will get used among like more than just Black people, among every race. We'll say, well, we don't have enough Black people applying, so oh well. And like, even though that is an issue, we shouldn't encourage that as an excuse. We should instead take that as a chance to like, prod these companies is like, hey, do a diversity program, maybe put more funds into education so that we can have more Black STEM majors, more Black care product business owners, but with that along, like, we can't complain about the lack of diversity and then also make excuse for people not keeping up with the, not trying to like keep up with the same level of diversity. So I still think it's totally fair to complain about things not being sold to a Black person. I do think it matters no matter what the product is. But going off on this point, I do like how we're getting a little bit more into the exploitative nature of a company, regardless of who owns the company. Because like, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but like, just because, who owns the company is Black, how much is this company actually profiting Black people? Like how many Black people are like behind the scenes? How many Black people are being employed here? How many, homes, education, how much are Black people really being helped out here, regardless of whether or not the person in charge is Black or not. And like even with entertainment, I think like it goes even deeper because like how is the Black image being portrayed? And like because let's see, Dave Chappelle, he talked about this a lot. And like if you think about it, some Dave Chappelle skits that you've seen, they would definitely hit different if you knew they were written by a white person, would they not? So it's another thing that we should talk about. And like I would argue the point that while it is very important, obviously, to fight for more diversity and complain and like push for more diversity, do more diversity initiatives. While it's important to do that, at the same time, we shouldn't make excuses and we shouldn't let anyone off the hook. Just because a business is Black owned, that doesn't make that business any less exploitative. So I think we should be more encouraged to turn a more discerning eye, not only towards diversity, but like how many Black people are actually being helped by these services. How many Black people are getting jobs? How many Black people are going to school? How many, I'm sorry, I keep saying, but like how many Black people are like being helped? How many Black people are being homeless? How many kids are being fed? We should turn more discerning eye rather than just who owns the company. Although diversity is still.
Let's go to KTN, then Gambit, then Do. Nope. Nope. I don't know, buddy. I don't know. What's going on? Did you unmute in Discord? I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you had it before. I don't. That's why I'm baffled by this. But okay. Let's go to Gambit and Big Do.
Y'all did it again.
Okay.
Like this whole meme of capitalism bad, just like it really needs to stop. It's like we live in a capitalist society. You can be as socialist as you want. You can run as far as you want to the left, but the reality is you live in America, and if you want Black people to prosper in this country, then Black people have to participate in capitalism, have to create these opportunities that we said we want. Like I hear a ton of y'all bitch about wealth inequality all the time, but the idea of a Black capitalist enriching themselves and trying to create more opportunities for people of color that would literally help close the gap that we bitch about all the time. It's like I don't even understand like the process, like the thought process that drives you to we shouldn't participate in capitalism. Like companies are going to exist, companies are going to pay workers, and workers are not going to get the full credit for however y'all want to verify that. Like
I don't think it's that we shouldn't participate in capitalism or whatever it is. I think it's that, I mean, if they're going to participate in capitalism, shouldn't it benefit Black people? And if it's not going to benefit Black people, then who actually cares?
If they're creating a company and they're giving out jobs and they're enriching themselves and they're doing whatever they're doing with their time to give money to Black people, such as Jay-Z, with all the things that Fanatic laid out, why? Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, like it doesn't seem like
because we didn't make it a co-op. Like,
it,
Well,
does,
somebody- Go for it, Big
it
Jim.
doesn't seem like in every other community, all right, like that because I don't know, the CEO of whatever large tech company, all right, may have came out, all right, from like this particular ethnic community that like they take issue with like the unemployment of other people. And I understand the context, all right, or like the ownership of like different races within that company. All right. I understand the context of course, like Black people historically have been oppressed and have had like systemic barriers which prevented them from being capable of competing at the same level. But I don't know what exactly is the desired goal here. If you're going to reach the level of title, you are going to sell to a firm like Google, like Square, like all of these big companies that are as vague and innocuous and as least racially prejudiced sounding as possible. Okay, so
no, but I wanted to finish where it gets real zero head to me is like we don't see white people telling them telling Jeff Bezos, hey, you know what, you shouldn't participate in capitalism, but we take on this dumb idea that Black people shouldn't do it. Like it's literally the dumbest thing.
Let me because I inspired him to say this, and as I usually do.
No, it was more than you. It was you, Colorado.
Okay. Yeah. But okay. So one, it's bigger than title, so we can push title aside, right? Because that's
I'm not talking.
I know. I'm just saying that like we could just push that aside for this conversation because we focus on that a lot, and it's not like so what I'm talking about in general is that capitalists exploit people, exploit human beings, right? So like when you're living within a capitalist system, the workers will be exploited. It's going to happen, right? You have nicer capitalists than others, right? They exist, true, but it doesn't mean that like if we're looking for help towards the community, right? If you want to see like wealth being created. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure we disagree on what you consider exploitation, but no, go ahead.
I think we do.
We absolutely do.
I think we probably do. But I'm saying that we cannot rely on the kindness of Black capitalists, right? From all the excesses that white people have done within capitalism, Black people are certainly capable of the same thing. Right? Doesn't mean that necessarily every person who owns a business is a bad guy. That's not the case at all. I'm not trying to make that case, right? But like, if you're hoping that capitalism will provide you that level of freedom because a Black person, right, will provide something special just because a Black person heads some organization, then I think you're cruising for a
I don't think any of us are making the claim that 100% of the time a Black capitalist will go off and be altruistic.
Can I also ask the question, GSU, you said that since we all live in America and we're not able to go ahead and criticize what Black people are doing.
No, I didn't say you can't criticize.
And I'm not even just going to say like as a Canadian, but but you're like, oh, like, no, we have to exist under capitalism. So like, just kind of get used to it. But like a lot of like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't exist under the same like rules that you do, so why can't I sit there and expect that
isn't a capitalist society? Wait,
I'm not. No. But what I'm saying, hold on. So I'm literally moving to more like SOCDEM countries. So I'm moving like in a month or two to another place that like has one of those sexy 45% tax places. So why can't I sit there and expect more out of Black people if I'm going ahead and doing my part as a Black person for my community, and I'm paying more taxes than they are, and I'm doing what I can with the little like money I have. I'm going ahead and supporting the Black community even though I literally have no capital to do so. So how come I can't expect at least something close out of bigger people that have more money and more resources than I do?
Because it's a ridiculous thing to sit there and say that you need to relocate to another country. Like if you're choosing to relocate to another country, like that's crazily upending and considering some of the harm that these people have experienced here, the fact that this is their home, like the idea that's like, no, you know what, like you should move to another place instead of staying.
I didn't ask them to move. I'm saying that I don't exist in the same system as you. So then I can sit there and criticize your system because I'm not living in the same. I'm not living in the same circumstances.
Capitalist country.
Okay, well, so
nowhere close to the same capitalism that you exist under.
Oh my
Canada,
goodness.
Canada is at least in the way
I
that
literally,
I think
I
most.
literally I did not grow up here. I did not grow up here. I don't know what you're talking about. I literally just live in.
You're
Did
you're
not grow up
breaking
here.
up, so that's why we
So,
can't.
You're breaking up.
like,
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
breaking
even
up
know
a
that
little
much about
bit.
the Canadian system.
You're breaking up a little bit, Katarana. Are you streaming? I'm not sure if you're streaming at the same time, but you're breaking up a little bit. So I think we caught most of that. But Big Dude, you're going to spawn, and then we'll go to Joe Lewis.
I mean, I agree with the sentiment to the extent, like just generally speaking, I think like leftists and a lot of people, especially like in the Black community and like the leftist internet sphere, focus on like the most useless things ever with regards to actually helping out Black people, oftentimes. And I think that like Black-owned businesses is, while it's an important concept and it's a really cool concept, I don't think it's that important in the grand scheme of things as like somebody who's living, all right, with really bad conditions overall, whether or not that business is Black owned or the person above them or at the top is Black, doesn't matter. I think what's more important is how can we just maximize the amount of opportunities that Black people have, whether it be getting into university, getting the job in the first place, doesn't matter. How can we maximize this thing? I don't know if like having even if we could make like every single business that was like, say, for the next year, okay, all right, owned by a Black person, all right, it still wouldn't necessarily change the outcomes of the individuals who are most hurt within the community.
Okay, so
that's kind of my point before, but go ahead, Joe Lewis.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on this a little bit in a different way. So something that I have a concern is I just want community control of economic frameworks that produce goods and services, period. So that means I want community control of housing, community control of schools, community control of businesses. So what that looks like is that you have members of your community giving back to your community. And what happens is, and this is my biggest concern when I see businesses come into areas, especially, this is the same critique I do to Amazon and nauseum, is that they are not actually filtering within the community that they are living in. I say living in, the physical structure that's there. It siphons out to a bunch of other communities because people will see the economic sort of quote unquote benefits of working in an Amazon that may not exist within the community. Something that I would hope for, and some states are pushing back in this in different ways, and some communities, and this is another thing of concern, is that through community control, you can force businesses to contribute to the community. Like
Hey,
you
Joe,
can
when you say community control, what does that mean? Somebody in chat was asking. I'm kind of
So community control of economic frameworks that produce goods and services. All that means is the idea of that members of the community contribute to the things that exist within their community. So that means you have people within your local community that are members of your local government. You have people in your community that are all also business owners, members of your
How is this
community.
different from municipality?
What's that?
Is it like
what is the functional difference between this and municipality?
Well, because you have actual
something, or
no, you have actual people living in your community actively. This is the same problem with policing, right? Like some officers in my township do not live in this township. They live vicariously in there through the work that they do. Many communities have this, right? Like when you have these business owners that are going outside of their community, working in New York and coming back, they are not contributing to their community. They're just contributing. How
are they not
to
contributing?
Themselves. Because
just wait. Could I just clarify?
Sure.
So like say I live in the suburbs of Boston. I've been to Boston. I used to live in Boston. All right. Say I was outside of the Boston proper. I lived in the suburbs of Boston, but I was a police officer in Boston proper. Okay.
Yes. You should live in Boston.
Yeah. So if that were to happen, all right, what exactly would be like the issue with regards to the contribution they're making? They're providing their labor. They might not necessarily be paying taxes to the exact same municipal government, but they're paying taxes to the government of Massachusetts. Okay.
Right, but that's not this. No. Yeah.
Wait. We're about to get into a whole.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Whole nother conversation. Like one big dude. I love you to death, but there are just so many issues with this whole thing. But unfortunately, as much as I would love to go ham on police, because y'all know how much I feel about that, This is
No,
not
it doesn't.
common.
It doesn't need to specifically be cops.
Right.
It
So
just needs
let
to
me
be
let me give you
literally-
let me give you an example.
let-
I
let-
can give you an example like directly within my community. Right. The average time of transportation of members of my community to their place of business is over 45 minutes. And the last census, it was at 47 minutes. They are only contributing to the community through their tax dollars because they live here. They are not producing goods and services by having the things that they are strong at. Like for instance, in IT, there are many people in my community who work in IT. So why is it that my township has to filter through the Board of Education members of the tech industry that don't even live in the township? Why do they have to filter I'm talking like literal districts away, 45 minutes? Like the people in the tech community in my town, in my school district, the head of that, the head.
Are you saying
sorry?
you can't? Are you saying you can't work unless you live in the same zip code?
No. I'm saying that we should be trying to the best way that we can to be contributing our tools and the things that we build within our communities. This is one of the reasons why I specifically do not teach outside of where I live. I teach the people in my community. I don't care if you want to, like, I'm totally more than happy to teach somebody who lives in New York, but hey son, you're coming down to me. I'm not coming to you, because one of the things that I'm just very sort of pilled on is being able to contribute as much as I can to my community. And a vast majority of people, through things like political apathy, economic apathy, and social apathy, just don't do that. Where it's like, I don't want to see my township saying, well, we don't have anybody in the tech living in the township, but then they say at the same time that we have one of the highest graduation rates of people in STEM. Like, you can't say you're struggling to find tech jobs in your community, yet despite the fact that my school produces some of the best STEM graduates in the state of New Jersey. So a disconnect is happening there, right?
So like there is a disconnect there, but it might just be the case that like, all right, even if you do produce the best tech graduates in this specific geographic location, that geographic location will most definitely, statistically speaking, not be the place where they make the most money. All right, especially if it's on the East Coast and you're talking about tech. You can make a lot of money in tech on the East Coast, but like almost always you can make more money in Silicon Valley.
But this is why you want community control. Like, if there is
how would community control solve that concept?
Okay,
nobody's going to jump off a building to just pay someone more money.
If you want something to exist, something that I want to have more incentive to do so is to be able to build your businesses within the communities that you live in. Right now, granted, it's totally fine as a musician or any type of profession where you want to go where your tools can be utilized. I am arguing that within a lot of communities, due to a lot of conditions, that it's not incentivized to do that. And the problem is, in one part, like when you look at your townships, right? What incentive does a high school graduate have to work within your community? What incentive does a college graduate have to work in your community? And I would argue in all the communities that we are sitting in this panel.
Can we just define what a community is first? Because like when I
where
think
you
of
live, a community is where you live. Big dude.
It can be as broad as.
That's not that broad. That's not that broad, son.
But like, no.
Not that broad, son. Where do you pay your taxes? Where do you pay your? Where do you pay
taxes? I pay property taxes to Waterloo.
Sure. So where you live is where your taxes go. So why would you, knowing, and this is one of my things of private schools, me and Gambit might fight on this at some point, where it's like, if you're spending your tax dollars to a certain area, why are you choosing, in my community as an example, shipping your kids outside of the state and paying double, despite the fact that my township has one of the best schools in the state of New Jersey and arguably in the United States? This is the thing that frustrates me, because these are individuals who are saying like, well, we can't get a proper education here. And it's like, okay, well, we still pump out some of the best people within tech, arts, technology, STEM, but then you argue like, oh wait, our school systems aren't good enough. And it's like, hang on, friend. Like there's a disconnect here where it's like, why are you wasting additional resources when the resources already exist within your community?
So somebody might be doing that particular thing where like they send a kid out to like,
yeah, because they're fucking stupid. The take is because they're stupid.
But that's just because they're fucking dumb. Like,
yeah, and they're politically, socially, and economically apathetic.
The original topic was about Black-owned businesses selling to other people and selling to non-Black people, and whether or not they're race training. Right. Just to bring this on home, the idea is relating this to what you guys were talking about and going too far down the rabbit hole, is that the idea is you do have the idea that the people who own a business, that people tend to be more aware and therefore more able to serve the interest of their own. So with that being said, that's the reason, that is the motivation behind people saying it would probably be best, considering all of the oppression and the different levels of attacks that we're receiving in this country, it would make the most sense for Black people, if possible, when feasible and when reasonable, to sell their products or sell their businesses to other Black people, because capitalistic endeavors are an incredibly important thing. Capital really does run this country, and it does seem nope, not attacking anybody. So since capital runs this country so much, it probably is in our best interest, in the interest of capital, to make sure that we're transferring capital to other Black-owned businesses, to Black owners, in the hopes, in the reasonable assumption that most Black people are going to be more likely and more willing to work in those interests. That's the critique. But as Katarana said earlier, there are plenty of examples and situations where you can't find people who have the capital to purchase those businesses. In such cases, like when you're selling title, you're not going to be able to sell to the Black people, but that doesn't make you a race trader. Now, there are specific instances when you are doing something that is really critical to Black infrastructure and Black community efforts, that to sell that to a non-Black person would be measurably harmful. The Flint, Michigan situation, it wasn't done by a Black person, but we can recognize how these businesses directly impacted this Flint, which was majority Black. So there are times where you have to recognize, when you're dealing with necessary components of infrastructure like water and community services, that the idea is to sell those things to non-Black people when you are a Black owner. Seems like that would probably be measurably harmful based on the idea of how we've seen these things done in the past.
So let's go to Big Do, and then okay, well, KTM's back. We meet Discord.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mute Discord.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. So Big Do, and then Katarana.
Yeah. So like, what if, again, like I'm just questioning, like, what if and obviously if there are certain things, like if we have like an organization that like is specifically dedicated to like activism within the Black community, all right, I could see a reason as to why you'd want the individual who owns that organization to be Black. I see value in that. Okay, but like in the case of most businesses, I don't see how like the owner being Black is being like a crucial fact to it being able to provide opportunity to the Black community as a whole. So I'm just questioning. Just wait, just real quickly. I just want to clarify the hypothetical. I just want to clarify.
Finish, please.
Would you rather, all right, say a world where you have, all right, outcome X. Okay, outcome X is where like the outcomes or the amount of Black people that have opportunity, employment, or whatever sort of outcome that you have that you find desirable for, okay, is better in, all right, excluding the fact that there are less Black people who own it, versus worldwide where there's less Black, where there's more Black ownership, but there is not as much opportunity as compared to world X. Okay, what would be ideal if you had to pick from one of these two? What would be your ideal?
So the correct take is, you want to live in a society where you can contribute to your community, and very often in a lot of areas across the United States, you cannot actively contribute to your community outside of just paying taxes. That's one of the biggest problems in a vast majority of cities in the United States, where you cannot, despite the fact that you might have a job outside of the city and you work outside the city, when you come back into the city, you're really predicated on a few things: making sure that your rent is paid, and also making sure that if you own a house miraculously in the city, which is incredibly rare, that your taxes are also paid. Because one of the problems is with the vast majority of Americans is, I would argue that they are economically apathetic and politically apathetic. So they just continue to do the grind of just, I'm going to work on my job and just make sure to do what's good for me. And that individualistic mindset of not being able to contribute to your community is a problem to me. And now, and again, like, there are some communities that are going to be majority Black, and if those people are working within their community, their dollar is circulating within that community, that's going to be an area that might see Black Americans thriving. Like for me, I am in a township where Black Americans are not even 1%. You can fit all of the Black people in my township into one movie theater. Shit, we can all go see fucking Ray and the Last Dragon tonight if we really wanted to. All 57 of us. Now, with that being said, when I contribute to my community, it's not going to be the same type of impact of dollar spread as an individual who might look just like me, who's living in a black majority community. But I'm arguing
But that's not
always
really answering the question. The
because
question
the
is like,
hypothetical is fucking. I'm not going to say the word. It's really, really bad. But
it's really like, but like I'm just like what? Okay, if we're just judging, all I'm saying is the black ownership component so relevant towards that factor that you would accept having less opportunity for the black community? If the answer is no, then we can move on.
No,
Because it
I
seems that
said-
we'd always prefer
No, no,
we'd
no,
always
no,
prefer
no,
to
no,
have
no.
both. But if the best possible means of delivering these types of opportunities to the most amount of people is just selling out to whoever has the most capital, then do that.
If you contribute to your community, that is going to have benefits for your community. Do you agree with
Okay.
that statement?
Yes.
So
That's
what do
logically
you
true.
so what do you do in your community that you can consider contributing to your community?
Like I pay taxes, I buy things locally. Like
Okay,
for the
what's
most part,
locally? What is
I'm
locally? What is locally?
locally, like convenience stores.
Name one.
Just
Give me a name.
look, like I don't want to like dox myself. But
Okay,
like,
I'll dox myself. I'll dox myself for myself. So here's something that is incredibly important here. When I contribute to my
Y'all
community,
actually disagree on anything?
no, I like the thing I'm trying to
think
drive
that's
home
false.
here is that a lot of people, Big Do especially, respectfully, you do not contribute to your community in a way that I would argue is very sufficient. However, there are many ways that you can do that. Yes, you can contribute economically within your community, but a question that you want to ask yourself is, does this business that I'm patroning actually contribute to my community? Or are they getting incentives so it looks like they are? As an example, a Walmart in my township, in the township I used to live at, like made a promise that they were going to contribute money to the community. And then my township said, here's the price of what we want you to contribute every single year. And Walmart said no. And we're like, okay, you're good. But then what happened is that all they did was go, and Gambit knows exactly what I'm talking about, is they just went to the township over. And the township over said, we don't care how much money you contribute in this, because the jobs are going to, the people in our community are actually going to go in there to create the jobs. But the problem
is
is
that itself a contribution?
Absolutely not, because the place that they finally plowed their land at a Walmart is impossible to get there unless you drive there. And something that Walmart didn't do was research that over 80% of the individuals in the township that they moved over for don't have a vehicle. So how are you supposed to drive to? How are you supposed to go to this place for work when the Walmart is
Walmart's
positioned?
job isn't to like ensure that like the public or these services that they provide is accessible via public transit. That's where you should take your complaints to urban planners.
Guys, we're gonna have to wrap it up. We gotta get.
But
to
that's
this.
the problem, because when these conversations happen and you can complain to the planners before they even put a foot in the ground, nobody shows up to these things.
Okay.
That's active community
we got
involvement.
a lot of people.
Okay. Let's go to Katana, KTN, and Lyra. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure if Lyra had her hand up, but Katana, KTN.
Yeah, I don't entirely still understand the whole idea of like, still trying to focus really hard on like Black people that aren't contributing in any way outside of hiring Black people occasionally, going ahead and selling to other Black people to keep the money inside. And I understand like other communities do that, but it's also not that much like within broad racial groups. It's more like nationalities and like mutual experiences, a little bit more of the ethnicity side, because I could go ahead and sell to I could sell Fanatic, my company, but he and I don't have the same experiences. I assume the rest of you guys are Black Americans. I'm not Black American. I'm a first generation or second generation immigrant. I'm not. I don't have the same like experience with the white person keeping down my family, because my family didn't get here until 20 minutes ago. So I don't really, and there's still like the general oppression, but like it's not the same experience as what like you guys have. I also recognize that like that's a point of privilege for me. I feel like in a way I am partially privileged because I don't have the whole redlining districts and stuff that are like part of my family history. My family history is just, we came here, got a job. It was middle class right away. That's literally like how it went for my family. My family back in their country, pretty good off, has been that way for hundreds of years. So like, I just don't understand, like, why would it be necessarily beneficial for me to go ahead and sell my company to you? Because it's not necessarily like, I'm not contributing to, like, I don't have the systemic oppression history that you do, so why not just sell it to whoever, especially like in my case, what kind of company might I start up? It's going to be so goddamn specialized, and like there's a good chance that whoever I might go and find that wants to go ahead, the other Black person that might have a semiconductor manufacturer, like, may not have the amount of infrastructure to necessarily like go ahead and do a good job at my company. Not saying that Black people would necessarily be worse off, but I'm just saying, like, when it's highly, highly technical, why should I sell necessary to a Black person just because they're Black when it's coming to like really, really technical stuff? Like, they might not be actually the most equipped to go ahead and continue my business.
So let's go to KTN and then Lyra.
I mean, I think that would be fine if you don't state your business. If your business's mission statement isn't to be like exclusively Black or serve exclusively the Black community. With the thing with Jay-Z, I don't think that Jay-Z should be indicted for it, because at the end of the day, when I look at Tidal, just off of the surface, I did not consider that a Black-owned company. He might have been the Black-owned figurehead, but to me, after everything was said and done, it did not look like what BET was supposed to be. Like everyone else said, you have Jay-Z, and then you have all of his other executives who are mostly, some of his partners and shareholders. Yes, some of them are Black, but it's not like the people that are in the executive level, the management levels are Black. It's not like he actively went out of his way, and we heard stories about Jay-Z saying, "I'm going to hire more Black people." Just like the music industry. In the music industry, we have people who own these record labels, and they pass it off to their best man. They pass it off to their manager. They pass it off to someone they've been with for years, and usually that kind of by default stays within the Black community. So when it comes to Tidal, I don't really think that it really should even have that status where we have to indict it as, or like even characterize it completely as a Black company. I think it was more just Black facing company.
KTN, the word is Black owned that you're using. You're like, I don't get this whole thing of saying this is not Black owned. Like,
no, it's
like,
not.
What does that even mean? You're literally saying it's not Black owned and it's majority owned by a Black person. Like, what the hell does Black owned mean?
It's majority owned by him, but I don't look at it as he had very much control over the organization. He might have had some, but I don't think
who has more control than the guy who owns the most. Like, I don't get this. You can say that he's not being as altruistic as you want, and a bunch of other things.
Is he doing the nitty gritty? Is he doing the daily nitty gritty work? Does he have other?
No CEOs doing the daily nitty gritty. They employ other people to do it.
Okay, but that's the whole point. That's the whole point. But for me, if you're going to say that, like, let's say Jay-Z. To me, I think it was more of an optics thing for him being the majority owner, and also it being characterized as a Black-owned company. Yes, it was a Black-owned company, majority shares, but did it act like a Black-owned company? No.
What does a Black-owned company act like? Does it suck its pants or something?
It act like an organization that was specifically meant to help the Black community.
Yes. So okay. So
That's
really,
charity.
what you really care about is like the altruism of it, right? And I'm fine with that, but let's not equate that to what Black owned means.
I don't even think the altruism, because I don't think that hiring Black people per se or making effort is fully altruism. If
you're doing it specifically because they're Black to increase the amount of Black people with those positions, that is a form of like altruism.
So let's go to
the deeper issue that we're talking about here is like how, like, okay, even if this country is or Black owned, you guys have disagreements on whether it's really Black owned, but like the deeper issue is here is like how much are Black people actually being helped by these companies, whether they're Black owned or not. And like honestly, I think this is something that can apply to much more than just Black people. I mean, we see it present in like other companies, like as Fanatic mentioned earlier, that are like largely owned or like quote unquote dominated by other races. But honestly, it doesn't even have to come down to racism, because it's not that strange of a concept that you would want to sell your business to a person who has more skin in the game, who cares more about like the whole heart of your business. Like with Black hair products, you want to sell your business to someone who cares about, you know, making sure Black people have right products for their hair. That's why it, like, who better to know what's good for Black hair than a fellow Black person? Just use it as an example. And that, it makes sense why people would get upset about like who it is not being sold to. But like something else, this goes back to the conversation between Joe and Big Do. A big false divide is being placed here between like who owns the company and like who are the people being helped. While I do agree that just because an owner is Black, that doesn't mean that Black people are being really helped out by this company in the long run, aside from diversity, you know, just aside from, oh, look, another Black billionaire. And some people may assume that, hey, that's not very like helpful because it's just another capitalist. But like, we still shouldn't like divide those things. Like it's still very
really. Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. But it's still very important that we do try to like opt for like Black owners, because like we're working with the assumption that a fellow Black person would know how best to serve back to their community. So we should be so quick to divide those two things. They do absolutely matter. They do absolutely matter. So I don't know why. I don't like the ultimatum that you brought up earlier, Big Dude, where it was like, well, would you rather have a Black owner or would you rather more Black people get jobs? Because those things aren't, you know, mutually exclusive. We can have both. And I remember you saying like, well, obviously we would want both, but like we shouldn't act with the assumption that like, you know, we have to pick and choose. We have to, because like obviously we're going for a Black person under the assumption that a fellow Black person would know how best to serve back their community. Like what Joe Lewis was saying, we want to try to give back to our communities because we can't complain about not having diversity and then do nothing to maintain that diversity. But
oh goddamn!
I don't want to digress a bit, but
that was amazing. Okay. Fucking KT, and you gotta mute. You gotta do. You gotta every time. I gotta server mute you. Yeah, oh my god, this is too much. You gotta server mute you. I'll come back to you. Just raise your hand and I'll unserver mute you. Okay. So that was, you really dropped the mic there, Lyra. That was actually really fun.
You want to do the song now?
No,
come on, Brian.
I'm not gonna do a song. All right, we gotta move forward. It's a good song. No, it's a good song, but we're gonna have to move forward. We definitely, I definitely just let us coast on this one for a while because it was really good. I thought it was really good. All right, so we'll move on to the next topic. This is really interesting. I thought I didn't think we'd get quite as much traction out of this particular topic as we did, but all right. Moving on. Topic 2. Okay, I'll say that last topic was made by our buddy comrade Samantha, but this one was me, and I'm really curious of what. Oh, before I do that, I want to say that two things. One, to my audience, if you're new here, if you're just following the show, do me a favor, hit that follow button, hit the notification bell, so you know I'm going live. We do this all the time, all right? So if you're enjoying this type of content, hit that follow button right this second. Don't wait, because you're going to regret it, because you're going to miss out later on. So hit that follow button, hit that notification bell right this second. Thank you. Okay, but beyond that, I was supposed to say this at the top, right? But this all Black everything, right? This is the first time we've had 3 Black women on the panel. Like, first time it's happened. And I'm very happy about this. It's been very difficult. It's been very difficult. Oh yeah, goddamn it! No,
I mean, it's not. I mean, why do you think that like we can actually talk without yelling? It's because there's enough women.
I was probably
no one said anything overtly stupid yet, so it's okay.
Yeah, Gambit has had to go off.
There, but no, I'm kidding.
That's right. Gambit has not had to go off yet, so we'll see.
I did something bad. I started engaging with chat, and I'm sorry. If I would have engaged more, maybe I would have yelled more. My bad. I had to turn chat off.
I was actually trying to make it for Black women, but the other one couldn't make it this time. Hopefully, in the future, we can make that happen. But that would be amazing. It's been actually very difficult to get this many. So I'm very happy to each of you for being so kind as to share your time with me and my community. So thank you. All right. So off to the next topic. Topic 2. It's well known that hiring managers at companies sometimes display negative biases when choosing candidates. One of these biases ends up excluding African Americans from getting callbacks when sorting through resumes. Hiring managers intuit who is black just from a person's name. So, due to this disadvantage and others that society imposes, should you avoid giving black children black-sounding names? So, this is a subject that I think can get a little hotly contested. But yeah, because in society, if people can judge that you are black before they even get a chance to see you, and then exclude you out of things, including getting callbacks for jobs, right? Should you, as a black person, avoid giving your child a quote unquote black sounding name? All right, let's go to Gambit.
Don't you Gambit.
So I don't know how I feel about this, and I know it's bad that I don't know how to feel about this. I've mean my whole life that we shouldn't. I don't really feel that way though. I think us being authentic with our culture is cool. I do think it's like signing up a bit to be, people are gonna be racist against you. I don't think it's bad though. I think it in some ways it can definitely be disadvantageous, but I'll never say it's bad. I think us having our culture and naming our kids what we want. I have a white sounding name. My kids have a white sounding name. I didn't choose a white sounding name for them because I thought that would make them better in life. That's just how things happen. But yeah, I think it could be disadvantageous, but I won't go out on the limb to say you're a bad parent if you do that. I think that's far too far.
All right. Let's go to Joe Lewis.
Yeah, we talked about this in the last panel, that naming your children Eurocentric names is an example of whiteness and white privilege perpetuating itself, right? So if we understand that whiteness is the practices that produce white privilege, and white privilege is the prioritization of the needs, desires, and all the things in between of white people, we should understand that we need to be incredibly conscious of certain things. So what's the practice here? The practice is that I don't want to name my child a non-European centric name. I'm just going to call a spade here. Now, the privilege comes for white people saying that I don't have to worry about individuals needing to consider renaming their children because they might not be able to pronounce my child's name. Now, here's because we got a Canadian here, so let's make this incredibly clear. Your identity and where you live matters, right? So what you're exposed to culturally is going to influence the naming of your children. As an example, right? My hair does this naturally. My girlfriend's first name, for those of you who don't know, is Hadith. She is from Pakistan. We are going to give birth to a child that's going to end up on every 3-letter watch list from the jump. And we understand that walking into this relationship. With that being said, we are not going to participate in the idea of having to rename our child just so that they're accepted in society, right? Like, there's 2 levels at play here. There's society understanding that the practice exists, that this idea of having to name our children Eurocentric names just so that they're accepted in the community, but also it falls on the people who are looking at these applications and understanding that you can't just discredit an individual just on their zip code or on their name. However, it's totally on the parent, right? So this is probably a position where you'll have people who will make that decision for their child, and that's on them. And again, like, this is where kind of the nuance exists in it then. But for me, listen, like, our child is going to have a pretty cultural name, whether I like it or not. And the name of our children is going to be quite cultural. So we mentally accepted that moving forward in our relationship. Now, because I know my girlfriend is watching, no, I'm not saying we are going to have a child anytime soon. We've actually talked about this. She's trying to indoctrinate me in having a child. And I know she's going to, oh, there she is. She's texting me. All right, I'm like, real talk. All right, I'm done. Anyway.
Okay. Wow. All right, that escalated. That escalated pretty goddamn hard. All right, let's go. Thank you so much. Fanatic.
Yeah, so listen, at the end of the day, I absolutely believe in, like, making sure like I'm doing everything in my power to like reaffirm my child's blackness and his love for blackness. I think self-love is something that's really difficult to come by, like naturally in black in American blacks. It seems like they go out of their way to make sure like that we hate ourselves and for various reasons. So at the end of the day, I want my child to love himself. However, I recognize there's all sorts of battles that we need to work on about unconscious bias and about systemic oppression, and some of that can come in the form of people hiring. I'm not going to fight that battle through my child. As a responsible person, I feel like it's probably in my best interest to make sure that my child has all of the tools necessary to succeed in life. And unless I have all of the wealth necessary, you see this happen all the time in Hollywood circles, when they have ludicrous amounts of wealth, they start naming their kids all kinds of nonsense. Blue Ivy and all sorts of nonsense, right? Like, but you have the ability to do that because you can insulate your kids, and they're not needing to go through this through the system the way that you do. But if you don't have the means to insulate your kids and make sure that they're able to be protected, then at that point you are being an irresponsible parent, in my opinion, because you're definitely putting your kid up for struggle. You don't know how many of the resumes are going to get sent directly to the trash because you decided to name them Laquanisha. To the contrary, you can find out that I had a cousin who's she is part like a quarter Puerto Rican, and her last name is very Puerto Rican sounding. She lived in Los Angeles, and when she was applying for jobs, she would always get the interview, always. But the second they saw her, because she's extremely dark, she's much darker than I am. But the second they saw her, they immediately were like, "Oh yeah, like no, yeah, I'm sorry, we're not hiring." I had a situation I remember years ago where I went to go apply at this one. They were doing medical coding at a temp agency. It was like $15 an hour, and I went there to apply. I went there with my friend Miguel. When we got to the temp agency, the Mexican girl that was offering these things, she was like, "Oh yeah, we don't really have any feelings for you. Would you be willing to like spin the sign and do like insurance selling, like advertising for insurance people, like one of those dudes wearing the Liberty outfit and selling spinning the sign? Could you be in a costume for a long time, like in a mascot outfit?" That's what she offered me. My friend who came after me, she immediately was like, "Oh yeah, like he literally he did the piss test, everything was done, nigga got the job, $15 an hour." So people do show discrimination towards other people. You are setting your child up for failure when you give them an intentionally ethnic name in that case. And if you don't have the insulation to protect them, you're absolutely failing your kid. That's my point.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much for that. As always, Gambit. Sorry, Fanatic. Oh man.
Yo, I hate Fanatic. Oh my god. I literally hate him right now.
Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's go. KTN. Hold on. I'm gonna unmute you. Okay. 1 second. All right. KTN. KTN.
Yeah. So this is a difficult one for me because I have an extremely ethnic name. And I'm not gonna, I don't like to make assumptions on whether or not my job interviews went through because of my name or not. I could assume it, but I don't want to. My daughter now has ethnic sounding last name, very normal first name. Now, do I think that I did that on purpose? No, not really. It was just the name of my grandmother, so that's why I gave it to her. But for me, I'm with it. I'm with the battle. If my last name and my first name is going to stop me from getting a job, then fuck them. You know what I mean? I've worked in freelance jobs, so all my jobs that I've had for a long period of time have been by word of mouth of people that know me. So I've been able to navigate around that. It's only when I wanted to not be in the freelance industry and I wanted to apply for jobs that I went to a temp agency and started applying for jobs through there. And of course, I found out not the hard way, but most of the jobs that I got hired for were brown people, brown people who were my supervisors. So, my suspicions may have borne out. But for me, I don't think that I should be afraid of my name. I've gone through it, my entire life. So my name shouldn't be a point of fear. It might make my family's life a little bit harder, but I might have to just get tougher. Simple as that.
Okay. Let's go with Lyra.
All right, so Fanatic, I love you to death. I don't agree at all, like at all. So like, okay, obviously we all know that how like people with ethnic sounding names are like largely discriminated against, and like even the incident, not only in instances of job applications, but even in voter suppression. Because I'm sure you guys heard about it. That Governor Kemp, how he did the whole what was it called exact match protocol, where he like basically he held everyone's who had an apostrophe or a dash or a letter missing out of their name. He held all of their voter registrations. He put them all on hold so none of them could vote. It was 53,000 people, 70% of which were Black, and like that was absolutely not only. I think it also came out for like Hispanic people and people with long names, long ethnic names, because you know their names were it gets kind of funky on government paper. So like there are even more instances and not just jobs in which people's ethnic names are disenfranchised. However, the burden should not be on us as minorities to assimilate into white culture. I don't agree with the take that we are setting our kids up for failure. I mean, yes, obviously, it is going to be a harder road, but that road is a road well fought at the end of the story. Because, like, if we all just assimilate and name all our kids all these Eurocentric names, that it's like we're losing that, like that face of diversity. Like, I want a lady president whose name is Shaniqua Jenkins, bruh. I want these real, like, whenever I go to vote and I don't know who the people on the ballot are, I go, what's the blackest name I can find? I'm gonna vote for that person. And like that's kind of silly. But at the same time, it's like if we assimilate and decide to keep changing our names and take away our ethnic sounding names, take away our culture out of our identity, then like what the hell? We're losing a whole face of diversity. Cause like, I mean, it's always a cool story. I love when I see like Black people, I mean people of other races, minorities that like with very ethnic names who are in places of success, and even though I know it took them a very long road to get there, that's a road well fought, I think. So to say that we like they're a bad parent for giving your child an ethnic name, I think that's just like the degrees of like whiteness and your proximity to it. That's just that showing itself. Because like, why should we have to erase our own culture out of our names? I mean, listen, there are some ridiculous ass names out there. Like I like to say, my mom's a caseworker. She got some weird names. My favorite one is Tadasha. Guess how it's spelled? T-A-dash. That's a real person's name that was put on the document. Black people got some ridiculous names, but I still don't think the burden is put on us to start changing our culture because people want to be racist.
Yo, okay, that's a Dasha. Yo, like
that's a real name. Real name. It's my favorite one.
I might have switched to Fanatic side though.
Yeah. I mean, look,
okay, I'll message you later.
I worked in a hospital. Oh God, I wish I could remember the exact name, but as some Black folk, man, you gotta think a little bit harder about what you name your one kid.
Yeah, some of the names ridiculous.
One, I remember one lady decided to name her like seriously, like they had like the nurses told me like when I was working at the hospital that they had to literally like talk to women. It's like, okay, I need you to think about this before you put this on the birth certificate. I'm need you to think real hard, right? Like one woman was gonna name her kid 4. Because he was the 4th one. And like, what? Why? What? And this other one, it was going to sound like, I forget what, I wish I could remember the exact story because it was hilarious. But like, it was going to sound like it was a Black woman naming her kid. It's going to sound something super racist. Like, and like they tried to tell her, like, don't name your kid this. For all these reasons, right? Like choose different spelling, do all these things, right? To have a similar type of name. And it was just like an endless battle.
Was she gonna name her kid the N-word or something?
No, I forget what it was. I gotta ask my friends. This is a long time ago. It was a really, oh God, it was such a good story. If I can find that, if I can ever let you guys know, audience, I will let you know if I can get my friends to tell me what that exact name was. But it was hilarious. I was rolling. Anyway, sorry. Big distraction. Big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I've like quite literally what I think is like the whitest sounding name possible and a very white sounding last name. So I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to like have that experience of like, hey, somebody didn't hire me because of my name or whatever, or didn't want to give me an interview or something along that lines. But like, it seems as if, all right, based on what Lyra said, like it's like 1,000 reasons not to do this. All right. I understand that like there's an opportunity here to like, I guess, stick it to the man or like demonstrate You know, like we don't necessarily want to have this type of oppression existing, but maybe our children aren't like the people that we want to be using as the bastions for this. Like there are a whole lot of fights out there to fight, and that our kids should fight, that we should fight. But like the naming conventions of my kid, like him just getting discriminated, and these are the sad part is it's one of those things that you'll never know. If somebody calls you the N-word, okay, because you're black, you know, I'm black. I have a skin tone that's black. There's nothing I can do about that. But if you as a parent go out of your way to bring that type of like repercussions on them, knowing full well that that's a very real possibility, it's actually rather likely. All right, I'd prefer not to, especially as like as like a person whose parents, all right, gave them an ethnic sounding middle name. Luckily, they didn't choose like that as my first name, but that was actually my dad wanted to have the ethnic sounding name, so they just put in my middle name. But I just don't know what benefit has to be gained other than like saying, all right, we're refusing, all right, to comply with the system, but we're going to comply with everything else within the system. It just seems like you're worsening the outcomes of your kid.
Thanks so much.
Gosh, I'm excited for this. So I think this is a I think this is a debate between whether or not it's something that you should do and whether or not something that that like, you know, how it works out when you actually do it, right? Like, should you do it? I feel like everyone should be allowed to name their kid whatever the hell you want. It's really unfair to judge people like they can't like it's really unfair to judge a hire candidate based on a name that like they didn't choose. I mean, we're assuming they didn't choose it, right? So like you don't even know. It's not only racist, it's classist, right? Because we're assuming if you're like named Shaniko Muniqua, right, we're gonna assume that you're like, oh, poor, right? Like, oh, we're just gonna assume that because we're fucking racist, and that's what we do. But who's to say what name sounds like what color? Like, who's to judge the actual name on the paper? But I mean, honestly, right? Like, you're gonna say it's a black sounding name, but like now you sound
You're
racist.
telling me if somebody came in with the name Jamal Blackerson, you wouldn't be expecting a black person? Is that what you're saying right now?
You completely threw me off with Blackerson, so I'm gonna barrel past it like I didn't hear it at all. My parents, my mother, and she told me this, and she told my sister this. My mother named my sister and I very deliberately. We both have one syllable, well, not one syllable names, but names that you can't make into nicknames. And she also named us to please our white masters. On a piece of paper, you read our name, and it sounds like a really Eurocentric white sounding name. Very much so. We sound European. And I don't know, to an extent, I agree with like give your kid the easy road. I don't think necessarily we're gonna stick it to the man because we want to name our kid something though. I think I'm really conflicted on terms of like, yeah, I feel like I'm probably gonna go like more Eurocentric in terms of I want that to be what my kid experiences in his life or their life. But when it comes to whether or not people should be judging you based on what your name is, I mean, some of these names aren't just like, oh, I want to be creative or whatever. Some of these names are names that are passed down, and some of these names are actually traditional cultural names. Like, a KTN says that he's got a real ethnic sounding name. Well, that's from your culture, and I don't think that you should be like, oh, well, you know, it's a more black sounding name. It's a cultural name. It doesn't matter what culture did it come from. Not all black cultures are the same. We're not a homogenous group. So I think that the notion is obviously extremely racist, and we should just be like, whatever, name our kids whatever. But do you want your kid to have an easy life? Maybe not Jamal Blackerson. And maybe like don't do what Elon Musk did either. Like be deliberate when you name your kids because your kids are gonna end up. What did Elon Musk do? Look up Elon Musk's kid's name because I couldn't even tell you what it is. And then he insists that you call them. He insists that you call them by that name. Get the fuck out of here! No, act normal, okay?
Oh, the kid's name is like some sort of math equation or some shit. It was like ridiculous. I don't know.
Oh Jesus Christ! I would fight my dad.
It's unbelievable.
It was a Wi-Fi password.
It's a Wi-Fi password.
Oh my God, I would fight my dad.
You subjected your kid to a life of this. Like she has to go around her whole life and either change her name, which is a hassle to change your name on all your documents,
and then
or
it's like it's
trying to explain this stupid shit.
Fanatic is gonna use that against you later.
Oh boy, here we go. So let's go, Cardano.
Finally got my first round of Nazis in chat, and I was dealing with that, and it was really fun. Yay!
Hooray.
Okay, hooray! Okay. So, how do I feel about Black names? And should you name them? Yeah, you should totally be able to name your kid whatever you want. If somebody's gonna have a problem with you when they find out that you're Black, they're gonna have a problem with you finding out that you're Black no matter what. May your name be, you know, I'm not. I don't even want to make fake names. I hate them. They're stupid. But like, may your name be Monique or Brittany or Maria. When you get to the job interview, if they didn't want you to be Black, they're not going to want you to be Black once you get there, or before you got there, or the foreplay or the after play. They don't want to where somebody has a problem with me because I'm Black. So I should be able to name my kid whatever I want, because my kid shouldn't have to go and work for a company that has such a huge problem with Black names in the first place. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna start doing it just as a filter. Like that's so stupid. And yeah, like I unfortunately have a French and German name. I have a French first name, German last name. People see me, I'm Black, whatever. But like, are my parents necessarily doing me a service? I would like to hope that like my resume did enough for me, that's what got me in the door, and not just because I have a very, very nice German last name and they were hoping that I might bring some, I don't know, pretzels along the way. I would like to think it's my merit. So yeah, no, like, name your kid whatever you want. It's like your culture. Why should you have to kowtow to the oppressor? Just, it's gonna, and you know what, like, all that stuff ends up being all that stuff ends up snowballing, and then I have to make sure that my kid doesn't wear braids to her job interview, and then my kid also needs to speak like in a very particular way when she's in the workforce, and she has to code switch. No, fuck you. Like, this is me. If you don't like it, don't hire me. Have a good day. Like, name your kid whatever you want.
Okay, so I guess I'll give my opinion on this. And Katran and Belize, like, you're like streaming in like 20 FPS. Like, I don't know. I think your computers are kind of chugging here. But yeah. But anyway, so my father, and I can't remember what it is. I can never remember what it is. My father was going to name me a very, very foreign sounding name. It was. I've been told what it is like 4 times. Like, never like remember the exact name. I'll have to like ask my mother again. But my mother saved me, and I'll always be thankful for her. It's a horrible name. I despise it. It was terrible. But I don't know what my dad was thinking. But he was gonna give me this like horrible, horrible name, and I'm glad that look. I hear what I guess what Lyra is saying. That it shouldn't be on us to have to fight this fight. But I mean, but it is like society is what it is, right? And if you're talking about giving your kids not an advantage, but like not giving them a disadvantage, then that would not naming them those names helps, right? I mean, it does. Like, they're just, those are the facts of the matter. So that is wrong of the culture at large, right? That is a wrong thing and something I hope changes. But like, just naming more Black kids those names isn't actually going to do that. Like, that's not the solution there. And knowing that that's not going to change society's views on this, is not going to change in my lifetime. I'm not gonna make my kid fight that fight for me, right? Like, I'm not gonna put them on the battlefield here. So I'm just gonna name them something more bland, like, I don't know, fucking Charles or some shit. I don't know. Like, to keep it easy. So all right. So Lyra, you're up first and open to the panel. And then Lyra, then KTN, and then Fnatic.
So one thing I want to make very clear is that this is an issue that is much deeper than just sticking it to the man, and much deeper than just like making a statement. Because Elon Musk was making a statement, but when a Black mother decides to name her daughter Keisha, that's a cultural name. Or like when a family decides to name their son Muhammad, that's culture. There's a history behind that name, and like the way I see it, like you know how I kept saying, like, why should we? The burden is not on us to assimilate our names to our culture. Why should we have to erase our culture to like to make a system that we all know is fucked up feel better. Instead, we should just like fight against that system instead of assimilating and agreeing to erase our culture through our names. We should instead just like fight the system and make it so that that doesn't happen as often. I know that's a hard battle to fight, but like I think it's much more valuable that we keep our cultural names. And this goes outside of just Black people. This goes towards Asian people. I get so upset when Asian people feel like they have to change their name, and Native American people too. They feel like they have to change their name and have an anglicized name. I mean, obviously, like sometimes it's like very hard to pronounce, but I don't like how so many of them feel like they are forced to, like they can't get a job to it. Like people are telling them, oh, well, I'm not gonna say your name. I'm not saying Shu. So your name is just you're just Susan. You're just Susan now. Like I don't like how so many people are forced to feel that way. Now, please do not misunderstand me. I do not judge parents who decide to give their children anglicized names. I don't see them as like, oh, you're just bending over to the white man, because like obviously there are a lot of disadvantages to having an ethnic name. So I don't blame parents for not giving their children an ethnic names, because as you said, Prime, that is another hurdle to jump over. But at the same time, I don't agree with the notion that parents who give their kids ethnic names are bad parents. Like, why am I a bad parent? Because I want to give my child.
I just want to be very clear. Like, no, it's fine. But like, no one
Fanatic
said that.
did say that. No, Fanatic
did you say that? Oh, I'm sorry. Then I missed that. I'm sorry.
Fanatic
I did.
So then,
yes, I did.
let Lyra finish your point. Then I
Yes,
thought no one said that. My fault. Lyra, finish your point. Then we'll go to KTN and Fanatic.
Yeah, giving your child a cultural name does not make you a bad parent just because the system that we live in is very fucked up and racist. Instead, we should keep fighting against that system and get them to not being so fucked up and racist and discriminatory towards people with ethnic sounding names. And like, if we just stop names, and like, I mean, what the fuck? That we're erasing our culture. We're allowing that to perpetuate. So instead, we should just fight against that. So I don't think while I don't judge parents who do give their children anglicized names, at the same time we shouldn't come down so harshly on people from different cultures who give their kids those ethnic sounding names, because like maybe I'm biased at this, because like listen, my name's not Lyra, my name is Tytrice. My mom made my name up. Okay, but I never hide that whenever I go to a job interview. And like what Katarana said, like I know I've gotten denied a live job application because I have a name that like people don't think exists. I type my name to Microsoft Word, it corrects it to titmice. I don't even know what that word means. But like at the same time, when I work in STEM. Okay, when other Black girls with ethnic sounding names, okay, when Sharkeisha and Tasha see Tytrice is like, you know, at the board working at NASA, they're gonna say, hey, my name shouldn't be that much of an obstacle. And like, and if we have more of these ethnic names and these higher positions, we're not losing our culture along the way. So the burden should not be on us. Parents are not bad parents for giving their children cultural names. Like I should be able to perpetuate my culture. I should be able to have it, should, because honestly, it shouldn't matter what the fuck my name is. If everything else on the resume matches, why the fuck does my name matter? I know obviously it does, but it shouldn't. So why should we allow it to matter?
Sure. All right, let's go to KTN, and then Mr. Fanatic. I'll unmute you 1 second.
Chat is like on it today, man.
Okay, go.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of fields where ethnic names don't really stop people from succeeding. The IT field, and I've seen multiple people of color in the IT field with extremely ethnic names. So I think it's really just the fact that it's Black, and it's kind of, and it's worse that the burden is on us more than any other culture to change to have our names anglicized. For me, I just kind of think that, it's extremely unfair that it's our burden. I don't see anyone telling people from Pakistan, India, I don't see them outright telling them they wear it with pride. They come into their jobs. There's very few generations like that where maybe the next generation, but for the most part, I don't see other cultures shying away from it as much as ours.
I think in the Indian community I do, right? I think like a lot of my friends I know, they have like a name that they use that is like the Americanized version of their name, but then they go by their real name like after they get the job. I've seen this a tremendous
This
amount,
happens in
too.
the Asian community. I know in Asia, like when I went to Hong Kong, for instance, like they had their regular name and then they had an English name just to make it easier to deal with like
Yeah.
Americans and English speakers, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's a problem, right? Where like it's to me, it's just unacceptable to feel like you need to do that, right? Like something that my township does is that that just doesn't exist. Like there are a few students who do that for their names just in interest of time, but that only exists casually. So like and this is the problem, right? Like if you have certain names, like like all of my members of my marching band, they have Asian centric names. And I'm not talking about Asia as just China. We're talking about China, Japan, Korea, Pakistan, Iran, Palestine. So I have to go through the grind of learning their names. And I make a conscious effort to do that. And not a lot of Americans do that. They just look at a name, and something that I've seen teachers actively do is just give children with quote unquote ethnic sounding names just a nickname for them just to get through the roster. And that to me just isn't cool, because then it gets internalized and then just perpetuates itself in different ways.
So we'll go to Fnatic and then Katarana. But before that, I just wanted to, I mean, sure, I agree with you that they shouldn't have to, right? But like you can understand that there's a utility in this, right? Like for instance, when you're calling customer service and it's a person from India, right? And they tell you their name is Paul. Hey, buddy. It's like, but the point is that like we're not gonna go through this whole thing where I'm gonna try to pronounce your name, right? Like this, like we know we're gonna have difficulty here, and so like there's a utility there, right?
No, there's no utility. Make them uncomfortable. Because these are people that are like, listen, if you're going to a place of business, you want them to respect your whole being. So I would say, I'm not going to fucking cater. Like again, like this is a part my take, part my girlfriend's take. Like she's not going to cater to the people that she works for just because they can't pronounce her name. She's going to like, no, we're going to walk you through it until you accept it. And like, if you can't, like, tough shit,
okay. So maybe let me separate these things, right? So
Yeah, sure.
like for instance, your girlfriend, I definitely agree, right? Like she should not have to hide her name. Like in a place that she works, she should feel comfortable there and the employee should accept her and make that effort, right? And so if I had an employee who had a very non-traditional name here in the States, right? I would make all the effort in the world to get that name correct, right? Now I put that on me. So I agree with you there. On the other side, in terms of like customer service, right? Like you aren't having an ongoing relationship with this person, right? Like that's not a thing that's going to happen. You just need this thing done, right? Like this service completed. Help with like your computer, whatever it is, right? You need to get that done, and so this name could be a barrier to making that happen. So, yes, my name is Harry.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, and maybe it's just because I'm in a majority. Like again, like my township is minority white, so like we are very much in a situation of you fucking deal with it. like there's never a situation where they'll say like, oh, my name is Chad or something. Like my mayor's name is Hamant, and there's so many people who say they can't pronounce it because it looks weird, and he just says like hard body to people in the township. My name is Hamant. And then like I've seen him walk through it in council meetings, embarrassing these white folks who come in there and say like, well, is there another name you go by? He's like, Hamant.
No, fair enough.
And then and it's like, I think that level of discomfort is okay. Like, because again, if we want to be this sort of culturally acceptable country and pushing towards that, we ought to, even in small exchanges, do the best we can to understand names. Is that going to be perfect? No. Like for God's sakes, like one of my students' names literally on my transcript on their roster is XZI. I was fucked for about 2 years, and then because there's a lot of syllables there that don't exist. But like the thing is that like again, like through conscious effort, I was able to do that from the jump. But even from the jump, he held me to the fire, where it's like, no, like you're not gonna, even in small exchanges, we're gonna make sure that you understand these names.
And I agree with you there. But okay, so let's go to Fnatic, then Katran, then Big Do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think I really need to say this. Well, I guess I'm going to anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I'm pretty sure we all are aware of the fact that the largest study ever done on this, they noticed that 50% called, like people got people with black sounding names with identical resumes were getting a 50% less callback rate Like this actually happened. This is the largest study like that proves that there's hiring discrimination. There's even all sorts of numbers that even prove that even after education, Black women are like one of the largest educated demographic in the country at this point. But even still, their income gap is still massive because of the fact that even though they have these things, that they still have to accept lower paying jobs because they have a harder time getting employment and in higher paying jobs, even within the same field. Like they're still discriminated against when it comes to the way that they're paid, even more so than white women, who are the largest beneficiaries of affirmative action. But anyway, you guys, there's this problem that keeps happening where everyone wants to talk about what should be happening. When I'm talking about pragmatic application of what you're going to do to your child, right? I'm not saying what you should do. Of course, everyone is going to believe we shouldn't be discriminated against. Everyone's going to believe that your name shouldn't have an impact on how your job is going to be. Everyone believes that people who are looking at resumes should be unbiased. No one's arguing that. What I'm saying is that they aren't. Everyone knows, at least every informed person here who isn't living in some sort of bubble knows that they're not that way. That with the way life goes, your kid will be discriminated against when you put in that application, unless you just decide to kowtow, as you guys kept wanting, whatever. When I'm saying you're being a bad parent, the reason why I'm saying you're being a bad parent is I believe, this is just my own personal belief, but I think everyone should do everything in their power to do everything they can to make sure their children, every reasonable thing that they can to make sure that their child succeeds. You don't want to be putting large barriers and obstacles preventing your child from success. So that means being there in your child's life. That's why I don't have any kids out of wedlock. Thank God. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that whatever plan B is amazing. A lot of times it's my plan A, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm making sure that I shouldn't have children. Like that I do whatever I can to make sure that I'm not going to be having children outside of wedlock. I've made that a big effort in my life. My pullout game is ridiculous. I also think all right, I'm throwing in some jabs and some jokes. All right, but at the end of the day,
you say that it just takes one Michael Phelps to get a gold medal. Okay.
Listen. So like one person said that that said that like having Black sounding names doesn't affect your employment in STEM because he saw some Black people in STEM. Like you don't know how many jobs those Black people went through in order to get hired in that place. You don't know how many different firms turned those Black people down before they got those jobs. It is a barrier. There's every study ever done on the topic suggests that, except for one study out of Missouri, which they tried to counter that. But the way that they did it, they used what they called Black names, but they were using names like one of them was Chloe. It was Chloe Washington or Chloe Jefferson. I think it was Chloe Jefferson. And it's like I didn't know that was a white name. I mean, I know that was a Black name. In fact, the vast majority of people in that county that have the name Chloe were white. But it's okay. We can disprove studies like that if we want to. But if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we do know Black sounding names do that. Someone brought up a point, Lyra, you did. You brought up a point about a nigga that was literally creating legislation to get rid of hyphens in names. These things are attacked. Right. We are under attack. So when I'm saying this is what's going to happen, I'm not talking about what should happen. I'm saying what's going to happen. So for you to know that and then to put your children at risk or put your children into a battlefield, you're fighting something bottom up. I get that we should fight things top down. So that means we do need to make sure that we're more represented in STEM. We do need to make sure that we get into more positions of power so that we can more meaningfully affect the hiring practices. My uncle worked at Red Cross. He definitely was in a position to be hiring folks. By the time he was done, him and his colleagues got together and his office, all of his subordinates he made it literally a 95% Black hiring. I mean, a 95% Black office because that was something that they wanted. They wanted that culture and they felt like they got there. He literally got there without even a high school diploma. Nigga was actually whipping. I respect all of that. I respect top-down fighting. I'm not going to fight something bottom up. I'm not going to set my child up to fail. And that's what you're doing when you're putting them, unless, of course, if you're insulated, you got the power, you got the money, you can make sure that little nigga get whatever. I don't think Blue Ivy's going to be struggling for freaking for employment. It's not going to happen. Neither is Northwest. So at the end of the day, when you got that power, you don't have to worry about that. Elon Musk was at one point the richest man in the world. So yeah, he can name his child, imaginary number equations. He can do that because he has the power to make sure that child doesn't struggle at all. He's not in the system. We, the vast majority of times, are not. But when you are, go ahead. Willow Smith is great. I think Will Smith is
Right.
a pretty reasonable
So-
name in that field.
Sure.
Okay, I got you. But everyone went like in that. I said something and everyone got at me. And I didn't even get a chance to respond to everyone. Last thing I'm gonna say. Actually, that's it. You guys got it.
Okay,
That's
all
it.
right. So we gotta go down the list. But I'll say one thing real quick. Plan B is fucking expensive. I had to do it once.
50.
That shit was like $30. I'm like, oh,
No, it's 52. It's 52.
Well, it was
Where did you
50.
go?
Hold on. It was 50. Oh, I don't
You
know.
got it
God,
cheap.
this is many years ago.
You
But
got
I'm
it for the
like,
low.
Listen, you dummies. Listen, all right. You fucking coomers out there. You gotta find the condom that's right for you.
I
Just
mean,
experiment,
it was-
my dude.
I was
Come
a
on
mess.
now.
I was like,
That's
this
crazy.
ain't gonna ever happen again. I learned my lesson. Fuck
I'm
that.
so kicked
That
over
shit
the Michael
was
Phelps
wild.
comment.
I went to CVS and like, what? What is this? What is this bill?
You should have
The
thanked
first
them.
time I did it, they were all sold out. They were all sold
They
out.
were
with
all
the
sold out when
CVS.
I went
They were
there.
all- It always keeps happening.
You know what never sells out? You know what never sells out? Condoms. Condoms never sell out.
Because they suck.
No.
For real? I said, God, look, if this store don't got it, the third place I went, then that means I'm meant to have this kid. And I went there, and it was the last one. It was
Condoms.
I
Just
had
go
to
condom
wait till
shopping.
Another CVS. I walked crazy long, to the first one, and then I had to go back and wait till another CVS hours later opened up. It was a mess. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna be more careful next time. That was a mistake.
Condoms.
I'm sorry. All
Condoms.
right, so we're gonna go to
Condom shopping.
We are
Yo,
going
Joe's
to
a
go
boomer.
to Katarana, Big Jew, Priestess, Lyra.
Damn, I'm
Okay,
all the way
hello?
down the list.
Hello, fellow sex havers. Plan B, what? I'm kidding. Okay, so first of all, I'm not sure if anybody's super familiar with Canadian politics. You don't need to be, it's fine, I'll explain. There's this really cool thing called Bill 101 within Quebec. It basically mandates that French is a really strong language within Quebec. You have to learn French, it's like super important here. Because language is directly tied to culture. If you get rid of certain parts of language, you get rid of certain parts of culture. Same thing, you say names. Names are part of culture. Why should I have to go ahead and pivot my culture? If I'm Nigerian and I move to America and my name is something that is a Nigerian name, why should I have to go ahead and name my kid Bob just because they get a job? Why would you want to work at a place that is going to sit there and put an eyeglass to your name that hard? Shouldn't they care about your qualifications, about all the things that you've done during your career? And I know it's the whole coulda, shoulda, woulda. They shouldn't be doing it, and I understand that they will do it. But my whole thing is, then fuck them. I don't want to work there. My child shouldn't have to work there. I don't want to work within an organization with racist HR departments. I don't want to be there because you know what that means? I'm not going to find anybody else in that department that's going to look like me. The next one that comes in that looks like me is also going to be in 3 years? No, fuck it. I don't want to be there. That's it. Like, why would you want to be in a culture?
But
in a
Katarana, what if
workplace
it's just the one person? What if it's like the guy in the hiring department happens to be that? The rest of the company is fine, but just happens to be the guy in the hiring
Then
department.
don't work in that department. Go work in another department.
Well, I mean, you
Apply for
can't
another job.
because you have to get past the hiring guy first, right? The hiring guy is the hiring guy.
Okay, that's great. But the hiring guy is also going to make sure that you never see another black person inside of your workplace. And
No, they can't do that. They don't have the power to do that.
no. Like, no. I know they're not going to make sure, but what I'm saying is like they're like it's going
I
to
see what
take
you're
a
saying.
long ass time before you see another black
Oh, I see what
person.
you're
So
saying.
fuck it. I don't want to be there then. Why do I want to walk around as the token? I don't want to be there.
Right,
My
fair
name,
enough.
keep my name.
So-
Now, also part of the whole thing is like, I know some people are saying like, oh, why should I have to, go ahead and fight the good fight? Someone has to. Sucks to be you. I people tell me sometimes I say, I'm tired. Why should I always have to go ahead and do it? But every once in a while, someone's gonna have to. If you sit there and say, why would I let my kid go ahead and go to integrated schooling because it's going to be really hard and the kid's going to face a lot of hardship when they first get there. I'll just keep them in the colored school, let them graduate like that. They can figure it out later. like no, someone had to go ahead and send their kids to Little Rock, and someone has to go ahead and like have their kids have a couple of hardships in order for us to go ahead and mitigate this issue. If nobody's gonna if no one goes ahead and names their kids different colorful names, then there's no way that we're gonna get rid of this whole stigma that you can't name your kids colorful names. Now, who was the person that made me want to go ahead and be in physics? Her name was Jadida Eisler. I saw that name. I was like, I know this is a nigga as soon as I saw it. And guess what? I'm in physics now. So like, whatever. Bitch has a PhD from Yale. She's doing her shit. She's a fucking she's a what do you call it? Professor now. Someone hired her. Hey, look, if you're good, you're fucking good. And if they don't want you, fuck them. Don't work there. Like, I'm not. Someone has to go ahead and do the fight. Let your kid do the fight. Builds character. Go ahead and bake them a couple of extra cookies when they get bullied after you know, the resume process. And like, it's culture. Language is culture. Let us have our culture. And also, first of all, I just want to note issue. This is honestly quite an American issue. And this whole thing of having to choose alternate names for your kids. Canada doesn't have a lot of people that have, my name is actually, what do you call it, Akash, but you can call me Bob. Or, you know, my name is actually Lau, but you can call me Jason. This is a fucking this is an American issue, and I think it's a part of your whole I think it's a part of your melting pot thing, where you tell people that they need to become American when you get there. Like,
oh, this is this is not an American thing. This is a thing that happens. Like, I'm talking like going to Asia, right? They choose names, like they'll have their regular names, and then also separately choose an English sounding name, like. Whether they they're going to they ever go to the States or
then they got
Canada
colonized good.
anything.
They got good colonized. I'm very proud of them. Good job. You got colonized real good.
But I'm
but
just
like,
saying it's not an
saying,
American problem. So.
Oh no. But like I'm saying, other countries don't really expect. Like a lot of other Western countries are not sitting there and being like, "Can you please like have a little bit more of an easy name for me?" Because like I know I decided to change my kid's name is Karen, but I'm gonna put a Y instead of an E, and I expect you to always understand what that means. But if you want to have a slightly more like a spicy way of spelling and like anything, then it's gonna be super inconvenient for white people. Like that's an American thing. Like a lot of other places, like you will go and they'll be like, great, like most of our people are first generation immigrants and they're used to it. It's so American to sit there and expect that everyone's gonna choose a name that's really easy for your mouth. If you don't like it, don't fucking say it then. Like,
okay, let's go to a big do.
Wait, really quick. Oh. Just really one quick rebuttal, really quick. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. This is not an American thing. Here, I'll link you something if you need it. That field experiment study that they were talking about, they found that studying that discrimination based on names happened all around the world. They did this study. They did the test in France, Sweden, Great Britain, Canada, Belgium, Norway, United States, Netherlands, and Germany. They found high levels of discrimination in all of them. Canada was literally third on the list. It happens there just as much.
So what I was saying is more like the whole expectation when you have conversations with people that they can you please have a name that's easier. I'm not in the mind of Canadian HR, but like at least the whole concept of having people like have easier names. Like when I was in high school, I knew a girl named Vidisha, but she just called me V. I'm like, nah, bro, your name's Vidisha. Like, why should we have to go at? But like people don't do that much in Canada.
But they still discriminate. But they still discriminate in their hiring practices, right? And what we're talking about here, like, it's not just about just pleasant names. We're talking about whether or not you're setting your child up for failure, or whether you're setting your child up for extra obstacles based on the idea that you're setting your child up for extra obstacles just based on their name, and whether or not it seems like it's fair to the kid.
The rest of my points. The rest of my points still stand. Look, like you might say, "Hey, kid, don't go ahead and do your trans surgery because it's going to be real hard." Someone has to do it. Go fucking do it.
No. The rest of your point didn't stand. The rest of your point was just as stupid. The last thing that you brought up was you literally brought up a comparison talking about, well, yeah, like, are you going to tell your child not to go to an integrated school because of the fact that there's going to be extra challenges with it?
Yeah.
But the thing is, the reason why that's stupid is because there's so many challenges that are offset by the fact that even though that child's going to an integrated, the fact of the matter is that children tend to perform better. They tend to have better outcomes, more college preparedness, more higher SAT scores when they go to integrated schools. The more integrated the school is, the better the quality.
You don't think there's some form of identity issues that come out of not having the name that's more tied in with your culture?
better the quality of education when you send them to integrated schools. So that would offset the idea that there might be challenges presented from race issues. And because of the fact that we know that in the vast majority of cases in wholly Black schools, that those tend to be in more impoverished neighborhoods because of redlining and things like that. So the child would have the child would have a worse time. So the idea that, like, yes, you would do these things, you would put them in certain challenging things. You're going to put them in AP classes if you have the opportunity, because yes, while it's more challenging, that challenge may be offset by a higher quality.
I'm just saying that your logic leads to the kind of parenting that tells kids, no, don't go into studio arts because you're not going to make as much money. Like, literally, it's the same thread.
We should do that.
No, don't do this.
We actually should do that. We should
not just let people.
Hello, I'll talk now.
No, stay out of studio arts.
Oh boy.
What?
You stepped in a landmine.
Fanatic.
You
Fanatic.
literally just stepped in a
100%.
landmine. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
But Fanatic,
Like,
I 100%.
it's just it's the same thing.
Okay. So we gotta get down the line. We gotta go on line. But yeah, you stepped on a landmine there. We've been down that road. Gambit and I have fought very hard on that one. But go ahead, please. Big deal.
All right, like as like a very proud Stefan. All right, I avoid most of the issues of just general niggatry with regards to name. But like I just don't know as to why this is like such a big debate. Like, I think that if you want to put your kid through the fight, that is your own burden as a parent. Okay. But I would, as like a child, I would prefer to just not have to go through that. And it's not necessarily because, all right, at Google, the guy in HR, it's just that one guy who's doing the employment for everybody. No, it just depends on, like, hey, this one person might have subconscious biases that might exist even if the person is Black themselves. You just do not know the mindset of the individual you're talking to. So at the end of the day, you just want to choose the most default sounding name, the most stock sounding name for your kid as possible if they're not, as Mr. Fanatic listed, a very wealthy individual. You just want something bland like Jake. I don't know other bland names, but like I'm just like, all I'm saying is like, generally speaking, just name your kids normal, or at least normal in the concept of like, this is what represents the average person in your country, so they don't have to go through that struggle. And if you want to put your kid through that struggle, all right, you are admitting necessarily that like you're putting up an extra barrier for your kid that doesn't really need to exist. Like, it doesn't mean that just because HR or a singular person at an HR department like decides not to shortlist your kid just because they have a Black sounding name, that wouldn't be a great place to work. That the individuals there are racist, or even that the HR department itself, the person who made that decision, is necessarily racist in the way that I think most people describe it. It's just like sometimes you can't necessarily control what your subconscious biases are. Okay?
Let's go.
I think that is the best means to deliver outcomes to your kids.
Thanks so much. Let's go to Priestess Lyra Joe.
Interesting conversation from Plan B to sticking it to the man.
Both are the same thing.
I know. Goodness gracious. So when it comes to the history of whitewashing our names, obviously that's they did it to the immigrants, they did it to the slaves. You know, this is your American Christian name now. This is what we'll call you. So it definitely has a very harmful culture to just suggest like, no more Black sounding names. We don't like this anymore. But I think we're talking in a really weird, like, it's kind of like blankety, like, should you or shouldn't you? And it's kind of like it's your own personal decision, right? Like if you have a name in mind that you want to name your kid, then don't think, oh well, if I name them that, then they're gonna have a hard time. And make sure you keep that in mind, though. By the way, if you want to name them something that's gonna potentially give them a harder life, make sure you keep that in mind. But I don't think that you should just completely wash your culture away because you think that their life is gonna be a little bit more difficult. I mean, they're gonna be born Black, are they not? Is that not like kind of a barrier to entry to a lot of places fucking anyway? So I kind of see what Katarana. Almost. I think I almost got it. I see what she's getting at, where it's like, fuck it, right? But then I completely disagree because it's like, well, then just don't hire me then. They're not gonna fucking hire you. That's how it works. They don't. Like, obviously that's the study that Fanatic's talking about. They don't. So it's extremely privileged to be able to name your kid a Black name, and it's also a privilege to be able to name them something that's not a Black name, because you need to integrate them into their master's culture, because that's just the way society works. You say, just go get another fucking job, or just go work in a different department. as though the job market is that like fruitful and welcoming to people who are in the bottom rung of society. Like, do you know how long it took me to get a job I actually liked? Do you know how long it's taken my roommate to find a job? He goes to interviews. There's nothing wrong with his record. There's nothing wrong with him. He's white and he has a white sounding name and he still can't find a fucking job. So I think it's a really privileged thing to say, that just like go get a different job. Do you know how hard it is to get a job to begin with? Do I want to put that barrier to entry for my kid at on the application? So I'm super conflicted, as you can hear, because it's like, obviously they're going to be black, so what does it matter? But then it's like, well, if is that really what you want to do? Just make sure you keep that in mind. That's
like, why not just do it with like what my parents did, which was for my middle name they gave me the very ethnic sounding name, and then for my first name they gave like the blank generic French name, and you just move on.
But I'm not saying that that's what you have to do, right? If you want to name your kid something super fancy and cultural, then I say live that culture on. I agree with the ladies by saying like we're kind of deleting black culture and deleting black culture through the names. Like language is culture, and when we erase language,
just make it the middle name,
culture.
and then nothing's deleted.
What Big Dude just said is, I think, pretty poignant, and I think I really wish we could kind of get away from this whole have to, right? Like, no one's talking about what you have to do, nor is anyone arguing about what should be done or how the culture should be. These are not part of the conversation. Let's be adults and update here. We're not saying what you have to do. We're saying this is what the way the system is, and this is a problem. I totally agree that it's a problem, but this is what life is at this point. So it makes sense that since we recognize this is a battle, that you're going to be putting your kids to that battle. Now, some people feel like, I don't care. I'm going to put my kids to that battle. I know plenty of people that do also. I know of a woman that literally smoked and drank alcohol while she was pregnant with their kids because she wanted them to have SSI. You can make these kind of choices if you want to. I'm glad that we have sorts of laws and things like that that'll like punish mothers for these kinds of things and force them into different programs and stuff. But at the end of the day, you can do that. No one's telling you what you can and can't do. We're saying, is it reasonable? Is it responsible? Is it fair to the child? I think what Big Dude said, my mother did that. My mother wanted all of us to have very Christian names. One of my middle names, I have two. One of my middle names is Samuel. I named after someone in the Bible. All of my siblings, one of my sister's middle name is Faith. Brother's middle name is Emmanuel, so on and so forth. So you can still embed those things into your culture if you want to, but you could also do that in the middle name where someone's less likely to be targeted, and then you're not erasing the culture. That's a solution. But again, if you choose not to, you can choose not to. But it's absolutely a cringy take to sit there and start saying, well, you know what? Then I'll just find another place to work then. We know that the black employment rate is so much lower than the white employment. I mean, it's so much higher than the white employment rate, right? We know that there's active discrimination against black people in the job force. We know that we're already discriminated against at literally every level. So it doesn't make sense to me why it is a place of privilege to be able to just say, you know what, actually, I just don't kind of care. I'm going to do things my way, and my way is just say, F the man, go ahead and name them the way I want to.
Let's go to Lyra, then Joe, and let's stop by KTN, see if he wants to jump in. And Katana, we'll go back to you too.
Okay, so we all know that having ethnic names, having these names that are or either cultural or made up, as we were talking about, obviously we all know it's going to put whoever has those names at a disadvantage. We know that, but at the same time, we have to stay aware of the big picture. If not, I am 100% where you're coming from, because as a parent, it is the parent's job to make sure that their child has as best of life as they can provide, and having an ethnic name. Clearly, that can be an obstacle. We all agree that it shouldn't be an obstacle, but I mean, it is an obstacle. So that's precisely why I don't blame parents who decide to give their children anglicized names. But looking at the big picture, if we continue to assimilate, if we continue to just erase ethnic names, and just don't give out ethnic names, then we are effectively losing a part of our culture. Language is absolutely culture. I know it may seem minor because it's just a name, but it's not just a name. That's identity. Your name is your identity. And I also don't agree with this, you're setting your child up for failure for the rest of their life. When they're good of age, they can change their name. If they don't want to have an ethnic name, they can change their name. But I don't agree that it's bad on the parents' behalf to give their child an ethnic name, because we are keeping our culture alive. We're keeping our culture alive. And another thing is that if we keep putting focus on erasing ethnic sounding names and keep going ahead with anglicized names, then we are perpetuating whiteness in and of itself. That's anti-blackness, anti-minority, anti-culture, because black people are 100% guilty of discriminating people based on sounding names. I have a friend, her name is Nigeria, her name is Ayomide. She used to work at CBS. Her manager, black woman, said, I'm not going to remember how to say your name, so we're calling you Rachel. They just decided to call her Rachel. Her name's Rachel. So it's like, and she's black. The manager is black. So like we are perpetuating a culture of whiteness when we decide to it is just the right thing to do. We're not saying you have to, but you ought to give your child an anglicized name. You're perpetuating white culture. And like I understand why you're doing that, because you are erasing an obstacle from your child, because then they don't have to worry about getting as much discrimination from the job market. But at the same time, we should chastise parents who keep that part of culture alive, who keep these ethnic names, because if we just agree to the system, we'll never change it. If we erase ethnic names, we will never get to a place where we have people with ethnic names in high fields. If we just all decide
nobody
to
had
never
an
have
ethnic name,
can I ask you a question though? Because I think bad maybe is coming with too much baggage. Do you agree that it's disadvantageous to give your child one of these names, like Tiana? Okay, so
disadvantageous to give your child, which is why I don't blame parents.
That's my fault. I love you, Gambit.
At the same time, to decide to chastise parents for having these cultural names, these hard to pronounce names, you're simulating. That's why I keep saying assimilating.
Question.
Your culture, and that's detrimental.
What else do you expect to happen? Like black people are 13% of the population.
You'll never break that spot. You'll never break that cycle.
No, like,
I'm sorry. What is that?
I have a question though. Okay, so we agree that it's disadvantageous. Okay, and now you're attacking like us who feel like we're attacking the parents, right? So the next question I would have for you is, do you think doing disadvantage?
I'm not attacking.
No,
I'm not attacking. I've said that so many times. I don't blame parents for giving out anglicized names.
No, I'm saying you've attacked our position of attacking.
Oh, you're breaking up. I cannot hear you.
I am? Really?
Not for us. At least not for me.
Oh, okay. I'm like, okay.
I can't hear you, Gavin. I'm sorry.
Oh, you sound like a robot.
Might be you breaking up.
Yeah, you robot.
Next time,
I can't hear you either.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I can't hear.
No, I'm dead ass. I can't hear you. Can you please repeat that, Gambit?
Yeah,
you're breaking up.
You're the one. Okay, yeah, you're the one who's breaking up. Hold on, I'm gonna text her. But
damn it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the question I wanted to ask is,
for me.
Yeah, I can hear her now.
Larry,
you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear her? All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. So the question I was going to ask is, so we can agree that it's disadvantageous. My next question would be, do you think it's okay for people to say doing things that are to be critical of people doing things that are disadvantageous to their kids?
Would I agree that are you saying that like it's wrong to like be critical against people who are adding obstacle to their children's via names? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, you're attacking.
Because like clearly, if you make it vague and saying like, well, clearly any parent who gives their child any kind of obstacle that could be easily avoided is a bad parent. Like it's very easy to make it vague like that. But like this isn't just a name. I think you guys are underestimating how important it is to have more people with ethnic sounding names. That is very important. This is a part of culture.
Could you quantify how important it is?
It's just a job.
That's our identity. That's our identity. We all sat
like
here
they still get to be a black person when their name's Stefan. Like what changes?
Against their names. Well, if we all decide to comply with that broken system and to stop giving our children ethnic sounding names, we'll never change that.
Are you saying that there's a different level of like joy when there's a black LaQuatiansha versus a black like person with a regular name? Like, is there a different amount of like
diversity and keeping your culture alive and having more people with those ethnic names, more of those people
whose names are
synonymous with their cultural identity in those high places? Because like here's the thing, we have these people, like some people discriminate against people with ethnic names, one because they're racist, but a lot of people discriminate against people with these names. They say, oh, that person's probably from the ghetto, that person probably doesn't know what the fuck that they're talking about. Well, we'll never that system if we stop giving our children ethnic sounding names, because we want to give these children ethnic sounding names, because then they will go ahead and change the culture behind people assuming that because your name is Shaniqua, you're not qualified. At the same time, I do not judge parents for not agreeing with this and say, well, you know what? I would still rather my kids avoid this obstacle. And I'm just going to name my child Linda. I'm just going to name my child Mary Sue because they'll have one less obstacle to worry about. And that's fine. I understand why you would go with that because as a parent, it's your job to make sure your child has at least things to fight through. But like, look at the big picture. We'll
But
never
why are we
change
raising mini Martin
if
Luther
we
King?
continue to comply with it. And we're not making our kids do it because they can change their name when they get of age. That's the thing. They can change. I can change my name right now, but I'm not going to. I know people get my name wrong all the time, but I don't give a fuck because I'm going to keep selling in STEM so that ethnic names can lose that shroud of like.
So Lyra, I want to ask you one thing. Then we got to go to Joe because, and I think Joe might have some interesting context here. In fact, because I think I remember Joe talking about this before, like a few weeks ago, talking about like how it was like these names came out of like people coming out off of plantations, African Americans come off of plantations and not being literate at the time and like trying to write names. So that's like where those like these quote unquote black sounding names, and these American black sounding names, because that's African names are a different thing altogether, right? So like American black sounding names are like are born out of that, born out of, you know, suffering under the excesses of slavery. But beyond that, right, like I think maybe my disconnect here with you is that like your strategy here, saying that we name our kids these names, right? Eventually the culture will shift and realize, okay, just because you have this name doesn't mean you're less competent, right? Just like I believe of you, like you have that name means nothing to do with your confidence. However, like beyond that, right? Beyond like a name, like what also makes people think that you are less competent, right? Is just being black, right? And there's been generations of competent black Americans going to these workforces, and still like that's the thought, right, that black people are less competent still exists. So like it seems like sending your child, like setting up your child to be another person to fight this fight may not actually be effective, right? Like maybe it has to be other things that actually, you know, change society. Does that make sense, Ira?
I do get what you're saying, but I would argue that it is still effective. I know it may seem like, well, you're black first and foremost, so like even if you don't have an ethnic name, like you're still black, so you're still putting forward that degree of like, oh, black people can be successful, black people can be competent. But I still think the name matters because, like, as like Joe likes to mention about how we have all these issues with systemic racism and all these factors. A big part of that is one. It's a measure of whiteness, but also a measure of proximity to that. And when we give our children these anglicized names, especially for the purpose of making sure they don't jump over these obstacles, like which again, I don't judge parents who do that. I 100% get why they're doing that. You still have to admit that you are complying to a system that measures people according to how close they are to whiteness. You're still agreeing with that system.
We don't disagree with that.
No one said otherwise. No one here in this entire conversation said otherwise.
So that's the thing. That's okay. So you agree with me that, right? That like, okay, obviously, if you're giving your child an Anglicized name, you're complying with that system. But if you, why comply with the system if you know that it's wrong? I don't judge parents who do not put their children through that. I get that, but no one should have to feel that way. And I know we all think that no one should have to feel that way, but you need to understand that if we all decide to comply, if we all berate parents who give their children these ethnic names and these arbitrary names, and like as I said in the chat, honestly, the lines are very blurred between what's a cultural name and what's a made up name.
I want to answer your question though.
So please let me finish. Please let me finish. But like, but at the same time, it's like if we continue to comply with the system, that will never change. And like, I want to go back to one of the examples that Colorado used that everyone kind of like shuffled over. I agree with may have been used in a weird way, but like, listen, when they first started integrating schools and parents sent their black children to these all white schools, they were getting spit at, cursed at, getting threats every goddamn day. And like, those parents absolutely put their children in a very dangerous predicament. And like, I can see why people would say, damn, why would you put your child through that? But at the same time, hey, somebody has to integrate the schools. Okay. And the same faction, in the same way, somebody has to diversify all these STEM fields where we don't get these ethnic names. It does matter. It matters.
Okay, so
for that,
we gotta move down this list. Okay, we gotta go. So Joe's next. Then it's look at the list again. Joe, KT, and Katarana.
Yeah, I have two things. One thing unrelated, one thing related. For those of you who have been paying attention, DMX's family opted to stop giving him life support. So that just broke about 30 minutes ago. Um, Currently, Barstool Sports and Saint, as well as other sneaker brands, are confirming his death. Currently, there's no other reports outside of that. But the only thing that is confirmed is that the family stopped with continued support on him. So just something to keep in mind. Now, anyway, names. Something that, not to bring the mood too down, but something that I think is um interesting, and this might be something that's like kind of more complicated to throw a wrench in this, is that one of the biggest frustrations that I have with my mom, right, is that she never allowed me to have sort of the nuance of this conversation because I was born with a different name. I don't know what that name was because when I was adopted, my mom opted to change my name for me. And when I was adopted, I was 5. So I don't know. And the thing is, too, is that even when I think back to like when I was younger, right, when I was in foster care, I was in foster care in the same household for 5 years. So I was under a different name. And then when I was adopted, and even to this day, my mom tells me like how she had a conversation about how like, do you want to change your name? But I vividly remember like just wanting to be called like the name that I am now. But then like I asked her like sort of candidly after the fact of like, did I have another name other than Joseph? And she just said yes. And I'm that kind of really, I don't know how I feel about it yet. Like my first thought is anger, but then like when I'm hearing like you guys talk about this, on one hand I think it's kind of something that frustrates me is that the very experience that I thought was like exclusive to me, where like parents are taking the names of children, is a common thing in adoption, where parents do not try to learn the names of the children that they're adopting and then actively choose to change the name out of whether it be necessity or otherwise. So that's kind of like why I'm very sort of hard line of like somebody's name is not always due to necessity. Sometimes it's part of culture, which is why I think the parents, on one hand, parents should be like, you're more than welcome to name your child whatever you may like. But at the same time, if you feel like you want to name your child something that means something to you and you want to pass on that to your children, I don't see any problem with that, you know? And that's where I think this is why this conversation gets a little weird, because like there's a pragmatic sense of it, right? Of like making sure that your child has the best outcomes, but your child is going to know their name no matter what. Like, and I think there's a level of responsibility as a parent to give empowerment to your child in a way of like being proud of their name. I'm not saying that's not getting explored here, but like even for me, something like, wow, like I'm like, guess I'm quote unquote glad I'm named Joe, but there was a whole span of 5 years of my life where I was known as something else. And even with getting like access to my birth records, I don't know what that name is. And part of me like still hasn't really come to terms with that yet. Like and the thing is too is that my mom did the same thing to my sister. Her name was Crystal and she renamed her to Christine. And she did the very argument that some people are saying now, where she wanted to make sure that my sister had better outcomes. But I would argue that like there's nothing wrong with the name Crystal. But like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like weird there, but
Pretty fucked up.
yeah.
KTN. So and let me unmute you. Right. 1 second. Go ahead.
Yeah, being one person on the panel probably has one of the most difficult names. Like I said earlier, it's not that it didn't bother me. You know, the teasing, the work, the job applications, all that other stuff. You know, I just knew that I just had to, do better. I either had to work harder, I either had to work around my name, I either had to do all these other things. And obviously, my daughter doesn't have a more ethnic sounding first name; she has my last name. But I, knowing what I know, it's my job now to make sure my daughter has a full set of skills, has an edge. The name, I think that I can get around that. I can overcome that with my daughter, with me, etc. So I don't think that the name even though it's an obstacle from people from the outside, it's still something that can be overcome. I don't think that, like most people said, it's your choice as a parent too. So for me, I think it's an obstacle that can be overcome. I think it may be tough, but I'm kind of with Katsuran on it, where it's like, it is what it is. Just buck up and do the shit you got to do.
But this is a very basic truism. No one's saying that these things can't be overcome. Like I really feel like I really choose my words carefully, and I feel like I added a bunch of caveats to make sure that we didn't keep going down these ridiculous rabbit holes, right? So, like, I choose the word obstacle instead of saying it's going to be a staunch inhibitor because I don't want people to say that, oh, your child can't be successful. We cited several successful people specifically so people would not go down the rabbit hole of they can't be successful. So it's not really contributing to the conversation, in my opinion, to start mentioning things like, well, it can be overcome. Yes, if you provide your child with enough skills and enough whatever, then that they'll overcome that. But that's why I said specifically, the onus is on you to provide enough insulation and support to your child to make sure that despite them having whatever name, that they will still be successful. If you have power and you have support and you have enough whatever, then you can make that happen. But there are plenty of people who don't have that power, who don't have that influence, so who will not be able to provide that for their children, who named their kid Laquanisha, and that child is just not, their resumes are going into the trash, and that child's going to be taking menial jobs. So at the end of the day, like, yes, it is an extra obstacle. I'm not saying, again, I feel like I shouldn't have to say, but I will one more time. We're not saying that you can't do it. No one's entertaining that, but people keep going down that rabbit hole. Yes, you can. We're saying, should you? Is it responsible? Is it fair to the child? That's a whole nother conversation. And I do think putting your child up with extra barriers as a Black person, it seems somewhat unfair. Now, some people will choose to do it for whatever reasons they have to, and you can make that. Yes, you are preserving the culture. You are preserving a culture. You are doing that. Not like all Black folks. I mean, some of the older niggas we knew, last name Jefferson and whatever, Martin Luther King. Like that wasn't a very ethnic name. So like you're preserving a specific culture, a subset of the culture, because Blackness isn't identified necessarily by having some of these ridiculous names like Ladasha or Top Ramanika. So at the end of the day, you choose. But it's just like we're going down rabbit holes over and over and over again.
And
I'd like to contribute to the conversation very much so. I can contribute here for you. I think that should we name them Black colored names? I think maybe we should name them Black sounding names. Because I mean, it is going to help people culturally. I think if both of these girls both had role models with names and had representation in culture with names that made them feel like, oh yeah, I could be seen in this particular position. I think it's the same amount of representation as literally just seeing someone with the same skin color or having the same culture as you. So to an extent, sure, I can see a lot of utility, but when it comes to integrating the schools, I think it's a different argument because like we were integrating schools, or at least I feel like people were risking their child's life to send them to a white school because the resources and the teachers and the supplies are just better. So I don't know if those are, you know what I mean? Like,
But like
the
what
personal
I'm just
experience is
confused
not
with,
the same.
Like
we're not raising. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, High Priestess, because like obviously like integrating schools and like using your name stones are different. But the reason I brought up that example is to like lead you with the concept that like although the fight will seem very unnecessary because those parents could have just sent their child to a Black school, because it may seem unnecessary in the long run. I mean, yes, I know it's different because like obviously there's like better supply at the white schools, but I say that like there is some utility in putting your child a utility that not everyone agrees with, fairly so, but like there is some kind of utility to adding an obstacle there for the sake of the big picture, for the sake of diversity.
Well, something I think
okay, but the difference is like one is because of the fact that like, hey, it's not you're putting your kid up to be a mini Martin Luther King to go on some sort of stage and be some sort of like presentation of Black excellence. No. Your kid at this point is going to these schools to essentially get better outcomes because separate but equal wasn't actually equal. Okay. So versus in this situation, you a parent already like making this decision without your child's consent. And like while your child can change their name, they can overcome all of these struggles.
That's expensive.
Okay. And still come out and do this. It's expensive, and two, it's also disrespect. Like, who wants to change their name from what their parent gave them? Nobody does. Everybody just wants to keep what their parents gave them because that is the least possible means of creating conflict. Okay, so
Oh no! I mean, I'm gonna push back on that hard. Like the minute I get the economic resources to do it, I'm changing my name. No cap. Because again, like I'm in a very different situation, right? Like the opportunity to have this nuanced conversation was literally taken from me respectfully by white people. My mother's white. She took that away from me. She took that away from my sister, which is exactly why my sister calls herself Crystal now. She does not use Christine because she acknowledges that my mother did that as a point of convenience. However, something that, to Fanatic's point, and this is why I may agree to a part of it here, but I want to clarify, is that something that I think if you do go the route of naming your child whatever it is, it's that like you have to understand the type of other weight that might come with that and being able to provide the level of empowerment needed for that. Because I think what happens is, like in my mom's case, is that she just changed my name and then just never told the history of my name. And then I had to find out that vicariously through reaching out to my biological parents, right? So like the only reason why like the thought of it was like even hinted in my head is the fact that my birth mother said to me, like, it's really interesting the name that my mother's name chose. And then I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And then I go down this rabbit hole and then this information is relinquished to me, right? So
Okay, I want KTN to be responding, then go to Katran, who's been waiting patiently.
Yeah. Back to Fnatic. I don't think it's irresponsible. That's kind of more my stat. That's kind of more my because obviously you might, but it's a choice you made. You know, you made the choice, and that's it. You know, kids are born into irresponsible shit all the time, and there's nothing they can't control it. So for me,
But that's irresponsible when they're born in irresponsible stuff.
I'm not saying it's always irresponsible.
There's
It's only irresponsible. It's only irresponsible if you don't have the resources.
kind of
I
irresponsible.
gave a caveat.
But
You're ignoring the caveat.
I'm not ignoring the caveat because resources or no resources, it is on the surface level for some people it's just the name, but at the end of the day, if you are a supportive parent, you're there, you're doing all et cetera, then that name, you're there. It's the name is it's a choice you made. It's an obstacle you gave them, but it should not be.
Why give them it? We're not raising mini Martin Luther Kings. We're raising black kids. Jesus.
you gotta stop doing that MLK take. That
They
MLK
don't
is
have
so
to be
cringe.
pinnacle. They don't have to be champions of the race. What we're talking about is keeping a subset of our culture alive. It's definitely a choice that each and every parent can have, but you can't berate parents for just making a choice.
Stop, please. We have to let KTN in, and then we got to move on.
I understand. I understand your opinion of like, okay, well, you're training to, but it's not. But you don't even have to look at it like it's not just because you name someone ethnically, you're not marching them into some like personal racial battle. You know what I mean? Yes, it depends. From Fanatic's point of view, I'm sure he thinks that, but it's a name. At the end of the day, a name is your identity. At the end of the day, your identity should not be, and of course, we'll get back to the thing where like should or should not. But you know what? Fuck it. It's the identity you have. You have to walk through life with it. There's no reason for you to have to say to yourself that someone put an obstacle in front of my face that like, to me. I think it's the wrong mindset, the wrong way to look at it in general. Especially.
But, so there's a lot of.
You know what I mean?
We got him.
I know.
No, he started breaking up, but I thought he stopped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and I know people with the same situation, with the same problem. And they all have the same. They all have the same opinion. Yeah, we have fucked up names. So what?
Okay, so we gotta just move on to Kadrana. She's been waiting very patiently. Go ahead.
If I have a Nigerian last name, is it irresponsible to give my kid a Nigerian first name? Because no matter what, they're gonna know I'm not white. They're gonna know I'm black as soon as I get there. So is it irresponsible to just name them the ethnic first name? Because it's even harder to change your last name. So okay. Like most people would probably agree, you can name your self Bob, but if your last name's Najambe, they're gonna know you're not white. So okay, cool. Then most people would agree and just name them an ethnic first name. And so that's going to be like, well, you already have a cultural last name, so you can have a cultural first name. Why is it more valid for me to have a cultural first name if I have like some type of ethnic last name, and then it's not as valid for me to go ahead and name my kid something? And like the only reason why I don't have a cultural last name anymore as a black person in America is because of slavery. There's no reason why my last name is Smith in America It's just because I got the slave master's last name. So why shouldn't I be able to name my kid whatever the hell I want? Because I shouldn't even have the stupid fucking last name, so I shouldn't have the stupid fucking first name that you guys want me to have. It's like, there's no reason. Like, I just don't, and I know like a lot of and maybe it's not an argument anyone here is making, but a lot of Black people will have this whole thing that it's more valid for somebody to go ahead and give their kids a cultural, an ethnic last name from Africa, from Nigeria, Ghana, whatever, but it's not as valid for someone to go ahead and name their kid something cultural in America. Why? And like, it's kind of stupid. Like, Black culture is different. African culture is different. Southern white culture is different. So I should be able to go ahead and name my kid something that is reflective of my culture. And like, I understand that like people are like, oh, like, you know, only if you have the means, like, you know, what do you call it? Beyonce makes billions of dollars, so she can call her kid Blue Ivy. Like, why? What? I need to be literally one of the most successful people in the world to name my kid whatever the fuck I want? Like, why is that the moment that I'm allowed to name my kid whatever the fuck I want? Like, I want to name my kid Blue Ivy. Why do I need to be a billionaire to name them Blue Ivy? And I understand it's the whole thing. Oh, well, you're able to go ahead and mitigate a lot of the issues that they're going to have. You know, you can basically buy their way out of issue that they would have had because of the name. But like, that's so like, so we all need to just continue. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't have to name your kid something ethnic. I don't think my parents wanted to name me anything ethnic, so they didn't. I have a German last name. Am I supposed to go name my kid Hilda? I don't want to name them fucking Hilda. I'm sure it would be a lot more correlational with my last name, or maybe I should like name them Hans. That would be a lot more correlational with my last name. But like, I don't want to, so I'm gonna name my kid whatever I feel like naming them, and just like. Nobody should have to go ahead and like not name them something that they truly like. It's a name that like calls to them. They love the name. Because at the end of the day, it's like some people are like, you should subject your kid to something. Like, your kids don't consent to half of the shit that happened in their life. The first 18 years, if you're a Black kid, it's just your parents telling you, fuck you, it's my house. If you don't like it, eat shit. So like, you don't consent to any of the crap that happens in your life. So like, what's the difference? Name them what you want, or don't name them what they want. No matter what, they didn't choose that name. Might as well name it what you want. If they don't like it, they'll change it anyways. If my mom named me Sally, you best believe I would have changed that shit by now. My parents gave me a name that's okay. I don't go by that name anymore. It's a dead name to me. I don't use it. The name was fine. Nothing's wrong with it. Gets me jobs. Looks very nice. I don't use it. So like, who cares? Like, you don't, just like you know, I don't remember last time you went ahead and like cut open it, did a like mid trimester C-section, said, yeah, you good with this? And then they said, and then you're like, okay, seems like they're good with it. Like, kids don't have consent to fucking anything.
I'm wondering. Finale, I'm not sure who you're yelling at, but
No, I'm talking to my stream.
okay, sure. I mean, I don't know, we have the time, but like, look, it was implied that, you know, whatever a parent can do to, like, you know, remove obstacles for their child, they should. Should a Black parent have children with a non-Black person, so that your kids will be lighter skinned?
Removes a whole bunch of obstacles.
I mean,
and also, your parents, like, throughout your life, just the way like, all of our parents fucked up at some point, your parents added obstacles to your life just by being your parents. So like,
So just don't fuck up in that one specific way, though. Like, it's just
don't
like,
worry.
you shouldn't
like,
having
look,
the
here's the
knowledge.
thing,
It's one
though.
thing if you don't know better. Okay, my parents have fucked up, but like, that's because they didn't know better. Okay, but if they knew this, if like, say my mom was like a sociology professor
I'm
and
sure
she
some of
chose
your
to do this
parents have
irrespective of
fucked
that,
up
that's
and they
just
knew
that's
that they
just
should
fucked
have
up.
done it in the moment. Like, I think if all of our parents have done something, and every once in a while you're like, are you dumb? Like, why would you think that's okay to do?
Yeah, because they didn't know better. But this is a case where we do know better.
But like, here's the thing: we all sat here and agreed that this system is fucked up. That we don't agree that we all agree that we shouldn't have to worry about our kids being discriminated against their names. We all agree that that's a fucked up system. We all wish that it weren't true, but unfortunately it is. But here's the thing: if we just continue to comply with this culture, we will never change it. And we shouldn't leave it up to the rich billionaires. We shouldn't
Why
leave
not
it up
leave
to
it up to
Jay-Z
the kid to
and
choose?
Beyonce to fix it, because then it would take even less time to get there. And then the rich celebrities, we're not going to get there. If we leave it up to all the rich people to allow their kids to have, like, at the names, all the giant, most, like, not Elon Musk, but, you know, Beyonce, Jay-Z, Sierra, we just leave it up to them and say only them can have ethnic names. That, like, we are delaying ourselves. We're cucking ourselves in the long run with that, because, like, that's less diversity that we're having. That's less ethnic names that we're having. That's less people that we have growing up with these ethnic sounding names and going to STEMs, like, you know, coming out of these communities. We're cucking ourselves in the long run if we just leave it up to people who, like, are the richest people whose kids are insulated. And you're still raising a part of culture. You just are. And, like, you can do that. It's a choice. You should be able to name your child whatever the hell you want. This is all Black everything. We're talking about Black names, but this extends to every culture, every single culture that has names that are anglicized. And you should be able to name your child whatever fucking name you want, okay? Whether it's anglicized or not. But you have to understand that if we continue to comply with this system, we'll never change it. So somebody has to do something.
Okay. Oh, thank you. We've run out of time here. My audience members, we are going to continue on with our walk-on panel, our open walk-on panels coming on right after this. So the stream isn't ending. The stream isn't ending. Oh God, the stream isn't ending. No one needs to click away. The content will continue.
11:30.
So yeah.
Holy shit.
Time flies when you're yelling at Fanatic, right? Yeah, I think
it broke my heart.
Thanks. It was gonna happen eventually. Yeah. So we'll continue on with this. Remember, the stream isn't ending. We're just gonna give everyone here an outro, and then we'll move on. Okay, and so I'll give you guys one. Of course, you can say your last words on this, and then tell people where to find you. We'll start with my good friend GSU Gambit, who I often argue about these things, but I think we were on the same side the entire time today.
No, not on the first one.
Oh, that
right?
the first one? I don't even remember. Huh?
We disagreed on something.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel good. All right.
But yeah, today was interesting. I was able to, like, live through Fanatic because we agreed on a lot of the stuff, and everybody was arguing with him, and I was like, yo, okay, this is cool. So I see how it feels when, like, everybody's at you. So no, yeah, this was dope. You can follow me, GSU Gambit. I stream, give money to Prime. Everybody go throw money at Prime after this so we can get, like, a level 5 hype train. That'll be dope. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm short today. Yeah, it was lit. It was dope. I enjoyed it.
So please visit GSU Gambit. The link is in chat. Check him out. It's a good guy. All right, we're moving on. We got the MVP, Joe Lewis. This was a day. This was quite a spicy one. Got a little personal there at the end.
Yeah, no, I think, like, I mean, in terms of, like, my name, it's a very, like, a special case, right? Because and that's just part of my story that's a little bit frustrating. I do have something to say, though. So it appears to be, this is getting really complicated. So Linnell was the person who said a really cryptic Instagram post concerning the circumstances of DMX, which is later interpreted by sources that life support was relinquished. It turns out to be not the case. And Linnell just clarified, saying, and I'm quoting, "When your spirit leaves and your organs fail you, the body becomes just a shell. One becomes wrapped in the Lord's arms. That's what I call gone. I'm sorry to all, #DMX. So it appears to be, and also sources in real time right now are retracting their tweets and statements in real time. So it appears to be that X still giving it to us, and people just misinterpreted a Linnell tweet. So my bad. But yeah. Sorry,
Joe, is fake news confirmed?
Fake news confirmed.
I'm playing, bro.
Fake news confirmed.
Joe Lewis, an official Fox News affiliate. Thank you so much, buddy.
No. If I was a Fox News affiliate, I would have said no. I wasn't wrong, guys. I was actually just a little bit inaccurate with the representation of facts.
Thanks so much. Okay.
Yeah, but sorry about that, guys.
No. That's cool. Yeah. You're trying your best. All right, Mr. Fanatic, Mr. Fanatic, rounding out the top OG3 here. I didn't mean to place you guys like that. It just happened. Mr. Fanatic, thank you for joining us and being you as usual for one of these. Fanatic, tell us what about yourself, and if you have a final take on this.
Yeah, okay, I do have a final take. Like this whole idea, like the way people kept arguing, where they kept saying stuff like "we shouldn't be doing this" or "we shouldn't have to do this" or "we shouldn't." It's like literally the equivalent argument of basically saying like, we shouldn't have to lock our doors. Like people should just not steal. So like, don't lock your door. Like it's actually crazy to me. Like at the end of the day, like you do whatever's best for your kid. And my thing is like, there's a lot of things. Like I mean, I've said this a billion times. You guys have heard in this panel. I would literally never put my kids through public school. I would do everything in my power to prevent that. Public school absolutely failed me. Like it was so absolutely awful and it held me back in so many freaking ways. It doesn't make sense. It was absolutely disgusting. Now I graduated, I did everything I was supposed to do and outshined everyone in my class. But the fact that I struggled so much and I had to take college courses in elementary is indicative of the fact that my elementary school is holding me back dramatically. It was stupid as hell. So I would never put my kids in public school. Now, I'm not saying no one should, and I'm not saying no one can, of course, but I'm saying if you have the ability, do better for your kids. And if that means not naming your kid like Ladasha or Bonquifa, like do what the frick you can to make sure that your child has success. Now, when you got that paper, then you can do that. The idea to be behind telling kids that they shouldn't be in like that they shouldn't be pursuing like degrees in liberal arts and gender studies. Like the reason why you would do that is because you know that if that kid doesn't have the power to be able to whatever, then I'm a musician. That's what I do in my life. I make decent money doing it, right? So at the end of the day, if I had a kid that wanted to be a musician, I would make sure I provided that kid all the resources necessary so he wouldn't be a failure in doing music, right? So it's not like always, but if you don't have the power or the influence or the resources to ensure that your kid is successful, then don't set your kid up for failure. And some people don't have that. If you're on welfare and a ward of the freaking state and you don't have any job, like any strong power, then you're not in the position to be naming your kid Top Ramanika, point blank period. And economically, they're hiring people. They know this. And they know that most of the time the people naming their kids things like this are the people that are so economically disadvantaged that they look at it as if there's an economic, cultural difference that's worthy of discrimination against. Do I think that's wrong? Absolutely. But is it going to happen? Absolutely. As a Black musician, I think you live the life you want to live, but just recognize that you're going to have certain problems. I struggle with a lot of things, but what I don't struggle with is making good music. You can find my music on any platform under the name Fanatic. No Mister. I'm going to provide a link to you for my latest song. It's called Araya. My bad. Prime always pronounces it incorrectly. He says Aria. I have another niece named Aria, but this one is Araya, pronounced like Mariah. And you can listen to this song. I think it's a very beautiful song that I made from scratch. Actually made it here. No, I made it at the other house. This is actually a really old song, but I just take forever to release stuff because I'm always nervous about it. Anyway, but people have given me good feedback. They like it. You'll like it too. Listen to it like everyone else is. Love you guys. Love you, Prime. Subscribe to Prime. You know where you can find me. Twitch.tv/Mr. Fanatic, Twitter, Mr. Fanatic, Facebook, Mr. Fanatic, all of that.
Can I ask Fanatic a quick question?
Yeah, please.
Why did you give it a Black sounding name? I mean,
look, I'm not even with it. I hate this thing. I thought I loved Gambit. He won me back over, and now I hate this nigga. Get out.
I'm sorry for mispronouncing it the entire time. I'm part of the problem. Oh man, I had no idea. Araya, like Mariah. Okay, fair enough. All right. But yeah, everyone go check out his music. In the chat. All right. So let's run the KTN. And see what they have to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically from the personal experience of a person with a fucked up name, have the courage to just, take it, run with it, and just fuck it. It is what it is. It was laid in your hands, and just do what you gotta do with it. Parents, don't regret it. Stand by your decisions. I stand by all my decisions. If you want to be a parent, stand by your decisions. You know what I mean? So on that naming thing, I don't think it's a big deal, but yes, I do believe, I do agree with Mr. Fanatic that, if you don't have the resources, you're just giving him another obstacle, but if you don't have the resources, step up your game. I don't know. There's not much I can say about this from a personal experience because I've been through it. So I already know what it is.
I gotta mute, or else it's gonna echo. So sorry. But thank you so much. All right. Next, we're gonna go to Katarana. Katarana, thanks so much for coming through. Third time this week. Hoping making a full 4. Katarana, if you have any last words on this, let us know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just kind of seems really weird to kowtow to like whatever whiteness requires. Like, honestly, like, what does it? I think it also falls within like the whole black beauty standard thing as well. Like, I would be considered more attractive like the straighter my hair is and the lighter skin I am, and go ahead and just choose a white name. Like, and I just don't think that we need to do all this nonsense to just prove our validity. If you're smart, you're smart. Fucking go off, sis. Name me Mbambe, like whatever, dude. If I'm the best physicist in the game, I'm the best physicist in the game. If you don't want it, don't take it. Whatever, man. And I also understand that's a bit. Some can say it's privileged, and there's already not that many jobs out there. But dude, it already sucks being black. Might as well make it worse. Let's go. Fucking yee. Okay. No, I'm kidding, Fanatic. I know you thought that that was a validation of your point. Sit the fuck down. Um, you got real happy there. Nice try, fucker. Outside of that, hello. I am Katarana. I am physicist and space industry lady. And Katarana streams or Katarana, one or the other. You'll find me on Katarana streams on Instagram and Twitter. You'll find me as Katarana on Patreon and here. So yay! If you like physics and you like representation for your kids or whatever you have, just a heads up that I will be hosting a tutoring stream this Sunday. So if you know anybody that needs help with their physics, chemistry, math, or coding work, I will be there all day on Sunday to help out anyone that doesn't understand anything related to any of those topics. So let's go. Yay.
All right. Thanks so much. High Priestess. High Priestess, you made the whole thing. We're all quite surprised. Me most of all. But I'm really happy that you did because I loved hearing your takes on this. As always, I always love hearing your takes. But High Priestess, do you have anything else to say?
I engage in a lot of caffeine today because work. So I'm pretty much awake and I got a lot of extra naps. So I'm doing good. I'm the High Priestess. I stream, I tweet, I model on Instagram, I play Overwatch. I say smart shit sometimes. If you want any of that, come follow me on Twitch. And if you don't want any of that, then fuck you. And otherwise, have a good night. I'll give you a short outro and bless you all.
What hero do you main on Overwatch, if you don't mind me asking?
I used to be a Mercy main. I have to just say that outright, but I play Zarya.
Oh my god.
I only play Zarya. I only play Zarya. Only.
Oh, okay. So you're just card carrying a bunch of plats. I see.
I am hard carrying plats as Zarya. Wow. Okay, you know me very well. Nice to meet you, Big.
Yeah, no, I played the game long enough, but yeah, continue.
Big do. Thank you for coming. This is your first time on All Black Everything. I think this may be the second time I saw your face. I don't know. You look
yes,
you look handsome.
3 times. I think it's been about.
Okay. Well, I know you look really nice.
Oh wait, no. This is the first time I've shown my face.
Okay.
But, like normally my face is just my profile picture.
Yeah. We're happy to have you here. I'm really glad that you can make it. You added a lot to this panel. We'd definitely love to have you back in the future. Big do. Last words on this, and tell people where to find you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Black Canadian. I was born in Massachusetts. So I ended up in Canada. Nothing much with regards to like qualifications, I guess. Like, I'm a pretty uninteresting guy on that front. I mean, I like to think I'm a bit entertaining. I decided to make a Twitch channel recently. I still haven't like actually got a name for it. Like, if anybody has name recommendations, I'm all ears. But mainly, you can just find me on the politics Discord server and like the trash one, the one ran by Doobie with all like the borderline neo Nazis. You guys can find me there. I'm pretty like big figurehead there. All right. But yeah, like that's about it. Nothing much. I just talk about politics, and like I also play Overwatch and The Sims.
Thanks so much. Expect your boy Doobie in chat to find that trash Discord server, and let him know that Big D sent you. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we have Lyra. Lyra, Lyra, I like you a lot. Even though we were on the opposite sides of this topic, right? I like anyone who can like take on Fnatic, right? Put that man in his place. So like obviously you're you're gonna be number one in my books. That's why High Priestess and I get along so well. Lyra, I'm so happy that you joined us once again, and the crowd, of course, loves you as well. Lyra, final words on this, and tell me where they can find you.
Yes. So for final words, we can't change a system that we not only continue to comply to, but that we decide to berate the people who don't comply with it. Then nothing will ever change. Because like one, I mean, you can name your child whatever the fuck you want, but like it's a big difference when we decide, when we come together and decide to berate people who give their children these names. Because then like, how do you expect anything to change? How can that change at all? We shouldn't always try to opt for the easy way out, especially when we have a system that we all know is perpetuating white supremacy and systemic racism, and it is because it's benefiting people because of their proximity to whiteness. It is because like if you have an anglicized name, that's proximity to whiteness. You're losing at disadvantage because of that. And like as a parent, you do have to like weigh those odds. Like, well, do I really want my child to go through this? I'd rather not, and that's why I'm okay with parents doing it like that. But at the same time, don't berate parents who decide, listen, I don't think it's worth it. That like should lose a part of their culture. And like another thing, we shouldn't always chalk it up to like, well, already we know that you will have a better life if I give you an anglicized name. Because like even as Joe gave us that touching story earlier, that kid may grow up and be like, hey, I kind of wish I had a name that like shadowed my culture a bit. And like again, I encourage you to think outside the Black sphere with this, because this is something that connects to like all cultures, all minorities. We shouldn't have to, and I don't want to, and I shouldn't have to, and I shouldn't be berated because I don't want to comply to a system that puts people at an advantage because of their proximity to whiteness, whether it be their skin tone, whether it be their name, whether it be what's going to like an all Black well, I don't know if he said all Black, but basically coming to like a disenfranchised school district, and then how large the gap was with going to like a PWI, and like that's something that I personally really agree with, because like I grew up in PG County. Okay, our books are outdated, our teachers are understaffed, underpaid, and like they're to a PWI. There was a large gap that I had to get over, and I recognized that there was a big trouble with that, and like sometimes I wish that my parents had just sent me to like a district that had more supplies, a district that was like, that had the funds to have a better education system. But at the same time, I don't want to take the easy way out when it comes to me and my own children. Because while it's easy to just send my kids off to a district, I'm sorry, I'm taking.
Yeah, it's okay.
Give your child a good name. I would rather fight the system against it. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to change this system, whether it be like, being a good example and giving back to these underprivileged school districts and making sure they have the funds so that, maybe colleges in the future, they won't look at PG and say but do my best to fight against the system that does that into the PG County. So I think there's something we should do on both sides. But I'm sorry for rambling. I'm sorry. My name is Lyra Centauri. I'm going to be cross-stitching after this. Good topic. I've rambled enough, so I'll stop.
Okay. Everyone, please check out Lyra. Her link is in chat. I had to put it twice because her outro is that long. All right, but really appreciate her as always. We definitely love having her here. And we love having all the rest of you here. This was a really good conversation. We only got through 2 topics, but like we had a lot of fun. At least I did. Listening to all of you talk about these things so forcefully. So thanks so much. We'll do this again next week. Hopefully, we can have you all around. We're going to roll into a open walk-on panel after this, and any of you can join us. But if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your passion, your knowledge with my community. I'm sure they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one.